Meet Elise, a 33-year-old corporate professional who's been happily married to Luke for 2 years. Luke, 3 years her senior, works at a sister company to hers. Since the beginning, they've been residing with his parents in a two-family home arrangement. Luke, the younger of 2 brothers, has an elder sibling named Cody, who's 6 years his senior. Before Elise and Luke tied the knot, it seemed like Cody and his parents were the primary occupants of the household. However, Cody's wife, Krist, known for her talkative nature and competitive spirit, often found herself at odds with her equally strong-willed mother-in-law. Eventually, Cody and his father had enough of the family disputes and decided to move out. Despite living alone since he started working, Luke and Elise never seriously considered the idea of residing separately from his parents. So, when Luke's mom suddenly declared that they would be moving in after marriage, it caught both Elise and Luke off guard. Elise had assumed they would continue living in her current apartment until they decided to start a family, as it was convenient for her commute. However, it seemed that living together was inevitable in their family's eyes. Although the idea initially unsettled them, they realized that the commute wouldn't differ much whether they stayed at Luke's apartment or his parents' house. Besides, the ancestral home, crafted by Luke's grandfather, boasted both a main house and a guest house, promising ample privacy. Reluctantly, they agreed to move in. However, Elise soon found herself regretting the decision. Luke's mother, in her mid-60s, began complaining about back pain and dizziness, leaving all household chores from cleaning to laundry and shopping squarely on Elise's shoulders. As a full-time worker, even sharing chores with Luke barely managed to keep our lives and his parents' lives in order. Then, an unexpected financial burden hit us. Firstly, the guest house needed serious renovations. Initially appearing livable from the outside, stepping in revealed a dire need for more than just patch jobs. The bathroom, kitchen, roof, floors, everything showed significant wear and tear. Yet it was our space, and naturally, we committed to paying for the renovations. What caught us off guard was when my mother-in-law demanded the same renovations for the main house upon seeing the newly refurbished guest house. It seemed inconceivable to fix up our space and leave them in a rundown place. However, we couldn't afford to do everything all at once. Why is Elise working then? To support us, her in-laws? My mother-in-law questioned. Exactly, Luke, we blessed you with marriage. You should serve us in return. So not only did they want the house renovated, but they also desired new high-end furniture and appliances, claiming the newly renovated rooms deserved the best. Additionally, they made us pay for every little thing, from groceries to household items. Thanks to this situation, Luke and I struggled to save even a tiny bit of money every month. Just as we approached the 3rd year, my mother-in-law and the Cody couple suddenly dropped the bomb. We're moving in, you have to move out. Christy explained that Cody got laid off, although he was actually spared but chose to leave to save a colleague with kids. Despite having 1-year-old twins himself, he was deemed more responsible due to his prestigious university background. Facing this ultimatum, Luke and I sat down with my in-laws, pleading our case for hours until we finally conceded. Fine, we'll move out this week. It was clear that we had no other choice. We've learned plenty about family from you, mother-in-law and father-in-law. It's time to put that wisdom into practice, right, Luke? I teased, glancing at my husband. Ha, finally getting it, are you? Luke chuckled. Yeah, just like Elise said, we're happy to do it. Great, case closed, he affirmed. With that, Luke and I turned our backs on our chuckling in-laws and headed for the guest house. 2 weeks later, we had movers arranged and relocated with no time to spare. Opting for the full packing service due to time constraints, we timed our move during my in-laws' regular lunch at karaoke with friends to avoid any complaints about the items we were taking. We wrapped up all the formalities in 3 days, utilizing our paid leaves and starting our new life. However, one day, I received a call from the front desk at work, informing me that someone claiming to be family was there to see me. I had a feeling she'd show up soon, but I didn't expect her to barge in on me instead of Luke. Quickly texting Luke about the situation, I braced myself for the inconvenience. Luke's response came swiftly, suggesting that we ask Maya to step out for a meeting to avoid causing trouble at the office. Passing the message to the front desk, we managed to make our in-laws leave as agreed. That night, as Luke and I pulled into the parking lot of our in-laws' compound, they, along with Cody and his spouse, rushed out of the main house and guest house to greet us. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that both my in-laws had a baby strapped to their backs, probably Cody's twins. As I locked the car, Cody's voice boomed angrily. Hey, how dare you show up here in my parents' cars? Luke remained composed, retorting, Your parents' cars? Which ones are those? This seemed to infuriate Cody even more. The cars you both drove up in, obviously, he exclaimed. Well, Cody, both these cars were purchased by us. Our names are even on the registration certificates. Would you like to see? Luke interjected, stepping in. I've been annoyed by how our parents drive these cars as if they own them. We let it slide because we live together, but now there's no need to lend them out, right? I added, feeling a surge of irritation. Don't forget Dad-in-law has that old minivan he used for work, Chrissy chimed in, glaring at us. Who cares about that old car? Spat Cody. But it's perfect for twins, isn't it? You can fit 2 car seats, I retorted, attempting to reason. Our back and forth made our in-laws uncomfortable. After seeing Cody receive a talking to about the cars, they jumped in. What about the furniture and the appliances? Taking them while we're away. That's stealing, not just from the main house, but also from the guest house, Cody argued. Yes, Cody and I can't live without those, Chrissy added. Why would we have to leave them? Look, I get what you're saying. We're using the guest house anyway. But there's no reason to dip into the main house too, Luke reasoned. Why isn't that stuff we all pitched in for? I asked, trying to understand their logic. Such arrogance. Even so, once you gave it, it's ours, father-in-law fired back. Whoa, hold on. We never gave you anything. We just lent it. There's no memory of us ever saying we're giving it to you, and there's no transfer of ownership on paper, Luke countered, shocking both our in-laws. We were living together, so we lent stuff as a courtesy. Now that we're living separately, why would we keep lending you things? We just took back what's ours. Is that a problem? Luke continued, exchanging smiles with me. Well, we have washing machines and fridges too. You don't need 2 of each, do you? They argued. Exactly, so why not lend it to us again? Wherever you've moved, stuffing everything into a small space will just make it even more cramped, Luke concluded. We exchanged grins, acknowledging our cramped living situation. True, we're pretty packed right now, I admitted. Absolutely, it's a tight fit, Luke agreed. Chrissy began, in that case. But we cut her off. Remember, it's a storage room, so it's supposed to be cramped, I chuckled. Exactly. Until the official contract is done, this is how it has to be, Luke concluded. This left Cody and our in-laws utterly confused. Then Luke dropped a bombshell. Oh, by the way, both of us are moving to Boston next month. Luke smoothly explained that we had both originally been offered positions at the corporate headquarters but had turned them down because we were living with my in-laws. However, now that the obstacle of living with them was removed, we had both accepted the transfers and happily received internal notifications for positions at the corporate headquarters. Even better, if all went well, we could be working there till retirement. As luck would have it, Luke's colleague, who was going overseas for an extended period, wanted to sell his high-rise condo. Everything fell into place quickly. You guys are going to live in a high-rise condo in Boston? Man, life sure does throw some curveballs, doesn't it? Cody remarked. Totally. If Cody and the gang hadn't told us to move out so they could live here, we wouldn't have stumbled upon this jackpot, I replied. But how could we even afford a high-rise condo? That seems unreal, Chrissy questioned. That's thanks to Elise's dad. He provided the down payment, Luke revealed. Elise's dad just gave you the down payment? Cody asked, surprised. Yes, my sister is inheriting the family property, so this is sort of a trade-off. Plus, a previous owner asked if we could hold on to his modern altar until, upon my return to the country, I proposed lowering the asking price, and he agreed, securing a significant discount. However, hearing about the extent of the discount, Christy, who was standing nearby, burst into tears, exclaiming, "That's so unfair. I'd rather have a high-rise condo in Boston than live in Atlanta." Suddenly, the in-laws, who had been quiet all this time, switched gears and started fawning. Well, it looks like Luke really has it together, doesn't he? Like mother, like son. Luke is following in my footsteps, they chimed in. Ignoring their comments, Luke turned to me and said, living in a high-rise in Boston, everyone's going to be so jealous. When are you moving? We must visit. If we're going to Boston, you should come too, I suggested. The idea seemed to intrigue them. However, the mood shifted when Cody and Christy stopped their arguing and snapped at the in-laws. "What are you talking about? Cody's being downsized, so you're going to have to support us. Plus, until I find another job, Christy will have to go back to work early from her parental leave. You'll have to take care of her household chores and the twins," they confronted. As tension mounted, Cody and Christy marched up to the in-laws who were carrying the twins. The babies, sensing the tension, started crying, waking up the entire neighborhood. Noticing the neighbors gathering at a distance from the garage, the in-laws turned beet red. Luke finally intervened, addressing Cody and the others. "Stop just standing there. Exactly, these guys are trying to take advantage of us, your parents." Luke's laughter echoed as he continued. "So, this is like a battle of wits between a raccoon and a fox, huh?" Turning to the bewildered faces around him, he grinned and explained, "If both couples, us and you, don't work, our family finances will collapse next month." Fuming, Christy asked what this meant. I chimed in, "Christy, you thought if Cody lost his job and you moved into the in-laws' rental home, you could just push the utility bills and groceries onto them, right? Well, our income was running this house and you can't count on it anymore." "I've never heard about this, exactly what we're telling you now," I admitted, puzzled. "Oh, and you'll also need to help with the mortgage payments for the house renovation. It's in father-in-law's name," Luke added. "Why is it in his name?" I questioned, catching the in-laws off guard. Luke took over, explaining, "I wanted the loan in my name since I was paying for it, but Dad insisted it would be shameful. So we used this property as collateral. Until now, we've been transferring money into Dad's account to cover the loan. Cody, you'll need to chip in starting next month." Of course, the in-laws and Cody were against it, but Luke firmly declined to continue payments. "We're going to give up the inheritance. So Cody, as the one who will inherit, you better take good care of your parents and the family home," I firmly told him. "But children are still obligated to take care of their parents, right?" my mother-in-law insisted. Luke brushed it off, saying, "Well, considering we've been covering your living expenses and loan payments for the past 2 years, I'd say that pretty much balances out any future caregiving costs I'd have as a son, don't you think?" "Let's go home, love," Luke said, looking at me. "Goodbye, everyone. I doubt we'll meet again." "Take care," I said, bidding farewell. The next day, Luke and I sold off the furniture and appliances we had moved from the main house, along with 2 cars we wouldn't need anymore. When Chrissy texted us asking for them, I simply replied, "Why?" and blocked her. After that, the special leave granted for our job transfer wasn't enough, so we had to use up our remaining paid vacations to finally finish moving into the apartment. Buying the high-rise condo would take more time, so for the first year, we decided to rent, thanks to the generosity of my boss who owns the place. As the weekend arrived, bringing a bit of calm after the storm of recent days, we gazed at the city lights, and Luke broke the silence. "I know I've been a hassle this time, but thanks for sticking with me," I said, feeling grateful for Luke's patience. "What's with the formal tone all of a sudden?" Luke joked, but then his expression turned serious. "When we first got married and the idea of living together came up, I should have thought things through. But back then, I was just happy you chose me over Cody, who I'd been compared to since we were kids." He continued, reflecting on how we had mindlessly followed his parents' wishes until they told us to move out to make room for Cody and his family due to the company restructuring. It struck me, how could they say that after being such a burden on us financially and otherwise? Luke wondered aloud. "And then I thought about how much your parents must worry about you given your situation." He explained that he sent an apology email to my parents, and their response was heartening. "If we promise to make our daughter happy in the future, the past can be forgiven." Encouraged by this, when they discussed the down payment, they lent it to us without a hitch. Luke made a promise to do everything in his power to protect our life together, just the 2 of us and our future children, if we were blessed to have them. However, on the other hand, it seemed my in-laws were struggling. Despite pulling from their retirement income, they could barely afford the loan for the home renovation. With Cody's attempts to find new employment proving futile, they were forced to make do with Christy's salary now that she had returned to work. Arguments were frequent, often loud enough to hear outside the house. A former colleague even reached out to me, mentioning gossip about them skipping town, as they had cut off all contact with Luke and me. They even resorted to reaching out to my parents, but my dad immediately changed his phone number, seeing it as a small but significant step, given how they had belittled my family and neglected pre-marriage courtesies. Now, they had almost no way to get in touch with us. What goes around comes around, I mused. Hey there, I'm Christina, a 32-year-old housewife just trying to keep everything from falling apart. Right now, I'm in the kitchen, mixing batter for Ethan's birthday cake when my little whirlwind bursts in. Mommy, can I lick the spoon? I chuckle, handing it over. Sure, sweetie, but just a little, okay. Ethan happily licks the spoon, and just then, I hear the front door creak open. Mark, my husband, walks in, looking exhausted from work. Hey, hun. How was your day? I ask. Same old, he says, surveying the scene. What's all this? I'm getting ready for Ethan's birthday party this weekend, I reply. I thought we could invite a few of his preschool friends. Nothing too big. Mark nods, but there's a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Sounds great, but have you talked to Mom about it? Ah yes, Vivian. My mother-in-law, who moved in after Mark's dad passed away. I try to be understanding, I really do, but sometimes. I was hoping we could surprise her, I say, trying to keep my tone light. And just like that, speak of the devil, Vivian glides into the kitchen. Surprise me with what, dear? I force a smile. We were just talking about Ethan's birthday this weekend. Just a small get-together with a few friends. Vivian's lips curve into that almost smile, the kind that never reaches her eyes. Oh, but didn't I mention my plans for that weekend? My heart skips a beat. Plans? Yes, dear, my high school reunion. I've decided to host it here. Isn't that exciting? I feel the punch to my gut. But Ethan's birthday. Oh, I'm sure he won't mind postponing it. After all, it's just a children's party, darling. This reunion is very important to me. I look over to Mark, silently pleading for support. But he's suddenly very engrossed in his phone. Typical. My phone buzzes, and it's a text from Rachel, my best friend. Still on for coffee tomorrow? I text back, absolutely. I need it more than ever. I glance out the window and spot Tom, Mark's childhood friend, walking past. Our eyes meet for a moment, and there's something in his gaze, concerned maybe? Suspicion? I can't be sure. I shake it off and turn back to Vivian, who's now rattling off a long list of what she'll need for her reunion. As I listen, I can't help but wonder. How did my life end up like this? And more importantly, how much longer can I keep pretending to be the perfect daughter-in-law before something finally breaks? Little did I know, that breaking point was closer than I thought. The next morning, after Vivian dropped her reunion bombshell, I'm up early, scrubbing the kitchen floor. My hands are raw, but it's nothing compared to the ache deep inside. Christina dear, Vivian's saccharine voice makes me cringe. I've made a list of tasks to be done before the reunion. And don't forget to cancel Ethan's little party. We can't have children running around during my event. I rise slowly, my back protesting. But Vivian, it's his birthday. We can't just. Now, she interrupts. He's too young to even remember. Mark steps in, looking as uncomfortable as ever. Honey, maybe we could postpone Ethan's party, just this once. I feel like I'm drowning. But Christina, Vivian cuts in, her voice sharp. Don't be selfish. This is important to me. You wouldn't want to ruin my special day, would you? Defeated, I nod. As soon as she and Mark leave, I call Ethan's friends' parents to cancel the party, fighting back the lump in my throat. Later, I meet Rachel at our favorite coffee shop. One look at my face and she knows something's wrong. Spill it, girl. What's going on? I tell her everything, barely holding back tears. Rachel's eyes narrow. That woman is bad news, Chris. Something's not right here. I'm going to do some digging. As we're leaving, we bump into Tom. He looks concerned. Hey, Christina. Everything okay? I couldn't help overhearing. This reunion of Vivian's, it doesn't add up. I went to school with her, and I don't remember any plans for a reunion. A glimmer of hope flickers inside me. Really? That's interesting. Back home, I'm helping Ethan with his homework when Vivian bustles in. Christina, I need you to move Ethan's toys from the living room. They're an eyesore. But Grandma, Ethan pipes up. That's where I play with my friends. At my party. Vivian laughs, a cold, harsh sound that sends a chill down my spine. Oh, sweetie, There won't be any party. Grown-up things are more important than silly children's games. I watch in horror as Ethan's little face crumples. He runs from the room, sobbing. Ethan, wait. I call, but Vivian waves me off. Let him go. He needs to learn the world doesn't revolve around him. No, Vivian, I say, my voice trembling with anger. You need to learn that this family doesn't revolve around you. This ends now. Her eyes widen in shock, but I don't wait for her response. I rush after Ethan. As I comfort my son, I hear Vivian on the phone with Mark, undoubtedly spinning her version of events. But this time, I don't care. I've reached my breaking point, and there's no going back. It's time to stand up for my family, no matter the cost. Little did I know, the storm brewing would change everything. But in that moment, holding my crying son, I knew one thing for sure. I was done being silent. The day after my confrontation with Vivian, I'm on a mission. I've invited Rachel and Tom over while Vivian's out running errands for her reunion. Guys, I can't take it anymore. I say, my voice shaking. I need your help. Rachel places a hand on my arm. We're here for you, Chris. What do you need? I take a deep breath. I need to know who Vivian really is. Something's not right, and I'm done being manipulated. Tom nods, his expression serious. I've been doing some digging, Christina. Vivian never went to the high school she claims. I checked the yearbooks. She's not in any of them. My jaw drops. What? But why would she lie about that? Rachel chimes in, her eyes gleaming with determination. I might have an answer. I have a friend in the financial sector. She did some discreet checking. Vivian has a history of financial fraud. Multiple cases. But she's always managed to slip away before facing charges. The ground feels like it's shifting beneath me. Oh my God. Mark's father, he was wealthy, wasn't he? Do you think she targeted him? Tom finishes the thought for me. It's possible. Suddenly, a memory clicks into place. Wait here, I say, rushing to the attic. I return with a dusty box. These are Mark's dad's old things. I've never gone through them, but maybe. We spend the next hour sifting through papers. Finally, I find it. A stack of old letters. Guys, listen to this, I say, reading aloud. Vivian, I know what you're trying to do. I won't let you manipulate my son or take what belongs to him. This ends now. It's from Mark's dad, dated just a week before he died. Rachel's eyes widen. Chris, this is huge. But we need more. Is there anyone else who might know about Vivian's past? I think hard. Wait, Mark has an estranged Aunt Linda. She and Vivian never got along. Maybe she knows something. Tom's already on his phone. I can find her contact info. But Christina, what's your plan? I stand up, feeling more determined than I have in years. We let Vivian have her reunion. But it won't be the one she's expecting. We're going to expose her, once and for all. Over the next few days, we work tirelessly. I reach out to Linda, who is more than happy to help. She promises to come to the reunion with proof of Vivian's deceptions. The day of the reunion arrives, and as I help Vivian set up, I catch sight of Ethan watching us. His little face still confused and hurt. It strengthens my resolve. Everything looks perfect, Vivian. I say, my voice sickly sweet. Your guests will be so impressed. Of course they will, she replies smugly. Now make yourself scarce when they arrive. I don't want you embarrassing me. I nod meekly, but inside, I'm ready. But inside, I'm steeling myself. As the doorbell rings and the first guests arrive, I exchange a knowing look with Rachel and Tom, who are disguised as caterers. The stage is set, Vivian's web of lies is about to come crashing down, and I'll be damned if I let her hurt my family ever again. I watch as she greets her old classmates with fake enthusiasm. But I know the truth is finally about to surface. Let the real reunion begin. The reunion is in full swing, and Vivian is holding court in the living room, regaling her guests with tales of her high school glory days. I'm playing the perfect hostess, all smiles and politeness, but inside, I'm a bundle of nerves. Rachel sidles up to me, still in her caterer disguise. You ready for this? She whispers. I nod, taking a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. Just then, the doorbell rings again. I open it to find Aunt Linda, Mark's estranged aunt, standing there with a look of fierce determination on her face. Hello, Christina, she says. I believe you're expecting me. As Linda enters, Vivian's face turns ashen. What are you doing here? She stammers, her voice trembling. Linda's voice is sharp and steady. I'm here to set the record straight, Vivian, or should I say, Patricia Moulin. A collective gasp echoes through the room. Vivian stutters. I don't know what you're talking about. Linda pulls out a folder and holds it up. I have documents proving your real identity, your history of fraud, and how you manipulated my brother's will to cut out his own son. The room erupts into chaos. Guests murmur angrily, some confused, others shocked. Suddenly, a man steps forward, a look of grim determination on his face. Patricia Moulin, he says, I've been looking for you for years. I'm Detective Johnson, and you're under arrest for multiple counts of elder fraud. Vivian, or Patricia, whoever she really is, looks around wildly, her face pale with fear. This is ridiculous. Mark, tell them they're wrong. Mark, who has been watching in stunned silence, finally speaks up, his voice tight with emotion. Is it true? Did you lie to us this whole time? Did you hurt my father? Vivian's silence is all the answer he needs. As Detective Johnson begins reading her rights, Mark turns to me, remorse heavy in his eyes. Christina, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. Can you ever forgive me? I take his hand, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. We'll work through this together. As Vivian is led away, the reunion dissolves into a flurry of shocked conversations and statements. In the midst of it all, I feel a tug on my dress. It's Ethan, his big eyes looking up at me. Mommy, is the bad lady gone? Can I have my party now? I scoop him up into my arms, hugging him tightly. Yes, sweetie, the bad lady is gone. And we're going to have the best party ever. In the weeks that follow, our lives transform. We sell the house, too full of bitter memories, and find a cozy new place to call home. Mark and I begin rebuilding our relationship, stronger and more honest than it's ever been. And true to my word, we throw Ethan the most amazing belated birthday party with Rachel and Tom by my side. As I watch the joy on my son's face, I can't help but reflect on how far we've come. From silent suffering to finding my voice, from being manipulated to standing up for my family. It's been a hell of a journey, but looking at Ethan's smile, I know it was worth every moment. As for Vivian, or Patricia, last I heard, she's facing a long stint in prison. But that's her story now. Ours is just beginning, and it's looking brighter than ever. Now I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven Mark for his blindness to Vivian's manipulation, or would you have ended the relationship? Think about the years of silent suffering and the impact on Ethan. Where do you draw the line between family loyalty and self-respect? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone in a similar situation. If you enjoyed this story of triumph over toxicity, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life drama and stories of personal growth. Your support means the world to us. Hey there, I'm Helen, a 32-year-old single mom and a hairdresser extraordinaire. I'm just walking through the front door of my childhood home, luggage in tow, feeling pretty darn good about myself. I just got back early from this killer hairstyling convention in the city, and my head is buzzing with new techniques and trends. I'm so ready to wow my clients back at the salon. Ethan, honey, I'm home. I call out, expecting to hear the familiar sound of my 8-year-old's feet pounding the floor as he runs to greet me. But instead, nothing. The house is oddly quiet. I head upstairs, figuring maybe he's in his room, deep into some game or book. But when I push open his door, I stop in my tracks, my jaw nearly hitting the floor. What in the world? I gasp. Ethan's room, the one with the rocket ship bedspread and the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, is gone. In its place is a swanky home office setup, a massive desk, a sleek leather chair, even some fancy filing cabinets. Mom, I shout, my voice echoing through the house. Ethan? I race downstairs, my heart pounding. That's when I spot him, curled up on the pull-out couch in the living room, fast asleep. Helen, is that you? My mom, Linda, pops her head out from the kitchen, smiling like everything's fine. You're home early. Mom, what's going on? Where's Ethan's room? Oh, we had to make some changes. Come meet Greg. She says it so casually, as if moving my son out of his room isn't a big deal. And right on cue, in walks a tall guy with salt and pepper hair, all smiles and firm handshakes. You must be Helen. I've heard so much about you, he says, extending a hand. And you are? I ask, my eyes narrowing. This is Greg, my boyfriend, Mom gushes. He's a financial consultant and needed a home office for his work from home job. I feel like I've stepped into the twilight zone. So you just got rid of Ethan's room. Now, Helen, Mom starts, her tone shifting to something patronizing. Don't be dramatic. Ethan doesn't mind sleeping on the pullout. It's like camping. Camping? In his own home? I can feel my temper rising. Mom, you can't just make decisions like this without talking to me first. Helen dear, she says, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I don't need your permission. This is my house, and I'll do what I want with it. I look between Mom and Greg, who's standing there with a smug little grin, and then back to Ethan, still sleeping on that cramped couch. Something inside me snaps. This is Ethan's home too, I say, my voice low but firm, and mine. You can't just uproot our lives for some stranger. That's enough, Mom snaps back. Greg is not a stranger. He's part of this family now, and you will treat him with respect. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside me. We'll see about that. It's been a week since Greg moved in, and something about him is setting off alarm bells. Last night, I was heading to the kitchen for a late-night snack when I overheard Mom and Greg talking in hushed tones. But Linda, honey, this investment is a sure thing, Greg was saying. We just need a little more capital to get started. Mom sounded worried. I don't know, Greg. We're already stretched pretty thin. I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. What investment? And why did Mom sound so uneasy? The next morning, I cornered her while she was making coffee. Hey, is everything okay? You seemed stressed last night. She plastered on a fake smile. Oh, just grown-up stuff, Helen. Nothing for you to worry about. But I wasn't going to let this guy ruin our lives. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I started paying closer attention to Greg's every move. The way he sweet-talked Mom into buying him expensive suits and gadgets for his business meetings. One afternoon, while Greg was out, I decided to sneak into his new office, Ethan's old room. As soon as I saw the bank statement lying on the desk, my blood ran cold. It was Ethan's college fund account, and the balance was way lower than it should have been. Mom, I shouted, storming into the living room. What happened to Ethan's college money? She looked up at me, wide-eyed, like a deer caught in headlights. Helen, I had to borrow some. Greg's business venture needed a little boost. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're kidding, right? That's Ethan's future. Right then, Greg waltzed in, perfectly timed. What's all the commotion about? I spun on him, anger burning in my chest. You tell me, Greg. What exactly are you doing with my son's college fund? He had the nerve to look offended. Now, Helen, I don't appreciate your tone. Your mother and I are making smart investments for all of our futures. Smart investments? Like what? Your fancy watch? Your new car? Greg's expression darkened. You don't understand business, Helen. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. Helen, that's enough, Mom snapped, suddenly standing by Greg's side. Greg knows what he's doing. If you can't be supportive, maybe you should find somewhere else to live. I stared at her stunned. Are you serious? You'd kick out your own daughter and grandson. Mom looked torn, but Greg quickly put his arm around her. Linda, sweetheart, maybe Helen just needs some time to cool off and think about her attitude. I stormed out of the room, my mind racing. This was worse than I thought. Greg had Mom wrapped around his finger, and he was bleeding us dry. I knew I needed help. Grabbing my phone, I dialed my best friend, Sarah. Sarah? It's Helen. Remember when you said you owed me for fixing that disastrous perm? Well, I'm calling in that favor. I need you to dig up everything you can on a guy named Gregory Walters. And I mean everything. Sarah's voice immediately grew concerned. Helen, what's going on? I took a deep breath. I think my mom's new boyfriend is a con artist and he's about to ruin our lives. I need proof before it's too late. Sarah came through faster than I could have hoped. A few days later, we met at our favorite coffee shop, and she slid a thick folder across the table. Helen, she said, her eyes wide. You're not going to believe this. I flipped through the pages, my stomach dropping with each revelation. Multiple pyramid schemes, 3 ex-wives. I muttered, barely able to process it all. Sarah nodded grimly. And that's not all. Look at the bank records. My heart stopped as I scanned the documents. He's been siphoning money from Mom's accounts. How did I miss this? I whispered, feeling the weight of guilt and frustration press down on me. Sarah reached across the table, gripping my hand. Helen, you need to tell your mom. Determined, I gathered the evidence and rushed home. I found Mom in the kitchen, humming as she cooked. Mom, we need to talk, I said, laying the documents on the table. It's about Greg. She sighed, clearly exasperated. Helen, not this again. Mom, please just look at this, I urged, flipping through the papers. Greg isn't who you think he is. I laid it all out, the fraud, the ex-wives, the embezzlement. As I spoke, Mom's face shifted from disbelief to shock, and then to anger. How dare you? She snapped. You're just jealous that I found happiness again. Jealous? Mom, he's stealing from you. Get out, she shouted, her voice shaking. I won't listen to these lies. Just then, Greg walked in, his face carefully arranged into an expression of concern. Linda, darling, what's wrong? Tears welled up in Mom's eyes. Helen's trying to turn me against you with these ridiculous accusations. Greg's eyes narrowed as he turned to me. I think it's time you left, Helen. But I stood my ground. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home too. Greg smirked, pulling out a document from his jacket. About that, he said smoothly. Linda, remember that deed transfer we discussed? For tax purposes? My blood ran cold. Mom, what is he talking about? She wouldn't meet my eyes. It's just a formality, Helen. The house is in Greg's name now. I could barely comprehend what I was hearing. You're putting me and Ethan on the street, your own daughter and grandson. Greg wrapped his arm around Mom again. Now let's not be dramatic. You're welcome to stay, as long as you stop spreading these vicious rumors. I stared at them both, my heart pounding, fury and betrayal coursing through me. Then something inside me shifted. Fine, Greg. You think you've won. Let's see about that. I turned and walked out, pulling out my phone as I did. Sarah, it's me. Remember that crazy plan we joked about? Well, it's not a joke anymore. We're doing it. Helen, are you sure? This could backfire in a big way, she warned. I looked back at the house, thinking of Ethan sleeping on that cramped couch, of Mom being manipulated and robbed blind. I'm sure, I said, steel in my voice. It's time to take this jerk down. Greg had no idea who he was messing with. I might be a hairdresser, but I was about to become his worst nightmare. Game on, Greg, I muttered. Let's see how you like getting a taste of your own medicine. I invited Greg to a business dinner at our house, pretending I wanted to make amends. He took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. That evening, as we sat around the dining table, I introduced him to my investor friend. Actually Sarah, in disguise. So Greg, Helen tells me you're quite the financial whiz, Sarah said, laying it on thick. Greg puffed up like a peacock. Well, I don't like to brag, but I have a knack for spotting lucrative opportunities. As dinner progressed, Greg became more and more animated, bragging about his foolproof investment strategies. Little did he know, every word he said was being recorded by hidden cameras. Just as he was about to reveal the clincher, the doorbell rang. My heart pounded as I went to answer it. 2 men in suits stood at the door, badges in hand. FBI. We're here for Gregory Walters. The look on Greg's face was priceless as the agents walked in. Gregory Walters, you're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. Mom looked shell-shocked. Helen, what's going on? I took a deep breath. Mom, everything I told you about Greg was true. And now we have proof. In the days that followed, the truth came out. Greg's fraud was even more extensive than we thought. Mom was devastated, but also grateful we had stopped him before he could do more damage. A week later, Mom called me into the living room. Helen, I've been thinking. I want to make things right. She handed me a document. It was the house deed, with my name added as co-owner. I was speechless. Mom, it's the least I can do. This is your home too, yours and Ethan's. Thank you, Mom, but you know this doesn't fix everything, right? She nodded sagely. I know. I've decided to move out for a while. Give you and Ethan some space. I found a nice little apartment nearby. That evening, Ethan and I stood in his old room, now no longer a home office, but a blank slate. What do you think, kiddo? Ready to redecorate? Ethan's eyes lit up. Can I have a superhero theme? I laughed, ruffling his hair. Anything you want, baby. As I tucked Ethan into his own bed that night, no more pull-out couch, I couldn't help but smile. We've been through hell, but we come out stronger. Now that you've heard my story, I've got a question for you. How far would you go to protect your family from a manipulative person? Even if it meant going against your own parents' wishes, would you risk everything like I did, or would you handle it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and opinions matter, and they might help someone else facing a similar situation. If you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life drama and stories of triumph over toxic people. Your support means the world to me and helps me continue sharing these important stories. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire to protect what's yours. Hey there, I'm Floria. Let me tell you how I turned my life around after years of family drama. Picture this. I'm a 28-year-old painter, chasing my dreams in the concrete jungle of New York City. Sounds glamorous, right? Well, it's been anything but. Growing up, it always felt like I was just a shadow of my older brother, Marcus. Mom would gush over his every accomplishment while barely glancing in my direction. There was this one moment I'll never forget. I'd won first place in the school art fair, a big deal for me. Heart pounding, I rushed home, blue ribbon in hand, only to have her barely look up from her phone. "That's nice, honey," she murmured before immediately raving about Marcus making the varsity football team. It was always the same. Marcus this, Marcus that. Don't get me wrong, I love my brother, but it hurt to feel invisible in my own family. Now, though, things are different. I got a little studio in Brooklyn, and my art is finally selling. And even more exciting, I'm getting married to the most amazing guy, Jack. He's been my rock through all the family chaos. "Your mom's going to lose it when she sees you in that dress," Jack said, a smile lighting up his face as we discussed the wedding plans. I wanted to believe him, I really did. So I picked up the phone and called Mom to make sure she had the date saved. "Hey Mom, just double checking that you're all set for the wedding next month." There was a long, heavy pause on the other end. "Oh sweetie, about that. Marcus is having the grand opening for his new shop that day. I promised I'd be there to support him." My heart dropped. "But Mom, it's my wedding day. Can't you come to both? You know how important this is for your brother." "I'm sure you understand," she replied, her voice brisk. I didn't understand. Not at all. After I hung up, I just sat there, numb. Jack found me an hour later, staring blankly at the wall. "Floria, what's wrong?" he asked softly. I told him everything, my voice barely a whisper. "She's not coming, Jack. She's going to Marcus's shop opening instead." Jack pulled me close, his voice steady. "Floria, she's the one missing out. We're going to have a beautiful day, with or without her." I nodded, trying to believe him, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd never be enough for her. As I leaned into Jack's embrace, I wondered if I'd always be the overlooked daughter. The wedding day arrived, and despite Jack's reassurances, I couldn't shake the emptiness gnawing at me. Standing in front of the mirror in my white gown, my best friend Sarah adjusted my veil. "You look stunning, Floria. Jack's going to lose it when he sees you." I forced a smile, hiding the ache. "Thanks, Sarah. I just wish." She squeezed my hand. "I know, honorable, but don't let her absence ruin your day. This is about you and Jack." The ceremony was beautiful, but my gaze kept drifting to the empty seat where Mom should have been. Sensing my distraction, Jack squeezed my hand as the officiant declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." As his lips met mine, I pushed thoughts of my family aside and focused on our future. Months flew by, and my art career took off. I landed a spot in a prestigious gallery, and my paintings were selling faster than I could make them. Jack was thrilled. "You're killing it, babe. We have to celebrate." Life felt full, until I stumbled across Mom's social media. There she was, grinning at Marcus's shop opening, celebrating his birthday, even out for a random Tuesday night dinner. Jack noticed my clenched jaw. "You okay?" he asked, concern in his eyes. "She's there, Jack. Every single event. Every time he calls, she's there." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I dialed her number, my hands shaking. She picked up, cheerful as ever. "Floria, is everything all right?" "No, Mom, it's not," I replied, my voice sharper than I'd intended. "I've seen your posts. You've been at every single one of Marcus's events. Oh, honey, don't be so sensitive." My mom's voice sounded almost annoyed. You know your brother needs more support with his business ventures. And I didn't need support on my wedding day. I asked, hurt bubbling up into anger. You've always been so independent, Floria. I thought you'd understand. Understand what? That I'll never be as important as Marcus. Now you're just being dramatic. You know I love you both equally. I scoffed, feeling the sting of years of neglect sharpen. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like Marcus is your golden child, and I'm just an afterthought. Floria, you're blowing this out of proportion. Maybe when you have kids of your own, you'll understand. Understand what? How to play favorites. No thanks. I hung up, my hands trembling. Tears filled my eyes as Jack wrapped me in a hug, his voice a gentle anchor. You didn't deserve that, Floria. Your mom's behavior is toxic. I took a shaky breath, wrestling with the ache and the anger. What am I supposed to do, Jack? She's still my mom. Maybe, he said softly, it's time to create some distance. Focus on your art, on us. You don't need that negativity. He was right. I couldn't keep waiting for her approval, sacrificing my own happiness. You're right, I'm done trying to win her over. From now on, I'm living for me. That night, I blocked my mom and Marcus on social media. It hurt, but I felt lighter. The next morning, I went to my studio, picked up my brush, and felt a surge of freedom I hadn't felt in years. This was my life, my art, my choice. For the first time, I felt truly free. 2 years passed in a whirlwind of paint and success. My art was selling faster than I could create it, and Jack and I were expecting our first child. Life was good, really good. One day, while I was in my studio, the doorbell rang. To my surprise, it was my Aunt Marge, looking anxious. Floria, sweetie, we need to talk. We sat down, and she fidgeted with her purse, a hint of fear in her eyes. There's something you need to know about Marcus and your mother. My heart sank. What's going on, Aunt Marge? She sighed, looking me in the eye. Marcus's business. It's not what it seems. He's been laundering money. I felt as if the room was spinning. What? How do you know? I overheard your mother on the phone. She's involved too, Floria. They've been using your college fund to finance this whole operation. My mind reeled. My college fund. Why? There's more, she continued, her voice a whisper. Remember your wedding day? Your mother wasn't at Marcus's shop opening. She was meeting with some shady people, setting up new investments. My chest tightened as betrayal crashed over me. So she lied to me about everything. Aunt Marge nodded, her face etched with regret. I'm so sorry, sweetie. I couldn't keep this from you any longer. After she left, I sat alone, numb with shock. Jack came home to find me still there, tears streaming down my face. Floria, what happened? I poured everything out, my voice breaking as I recounted Aunt Marge's revelations. Jack's face hardened, his jaw clenched. They've manipulated you for years, he said, his voice low with anger. You don't deserve this, Floria. I looked down at my swollen belly, torn between the love for my family and the pain they caused. What do we do now? Jack paced the room, his face set with determination. We can't let them get away with this, Floria. It's not just about you anymore. We have to think about our child. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. We could tip off the authorities. Anonymously, let them investigate. But that's my family, Jack, I whispered, the ache of betrayal twisting within me. Your family, he said, his voice steady, who stole from you, lied to you and prioritized themselves over you for years. My hands shook as I picked up the phone and dialed the local police station. Hello, I'd like to report some suspicious financial activity. As I spoke, a heavy weight lifted from my shoulders. This was it, the moment I stopped being a victim and took control of my life. When I hung up, Jack pulled me into his arms. You did the right thing, Floria. I'm proud of you. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. I just hope I can live with what I've done. Jack placed a hand on my stomach. Remember, they made their choices. You're protecting our family, our future. As I felt our baby kick, I knew he was right. It was time to break free from the toxic cycle and create a better life for our child. Whatever happened next, we'd face it together. Months flew by, and before I knew it, I cradled my newborn daughter, Lily, in my arms, with Jack grinning beside me. She's perfect, Floria. Just like her mom. Lost in Lily's tiny features, I barely noticed Jack turning up the TV. Breaking news. Local businessman Marcus Thompson arrested on charges of fraud and money laundering. The anchor announced. My jaw dropped as footage showed my brother being led away in handcuffs. Jack squeezed my hand. You okay, babe? I don't know. It's surreal, I whispered. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I hesitated before answering. Floria, thank God you picked up. It's all a mistake. You have to help us, she pleaded, her voice frantic. Help you? How? I asked, already knowing her answer. We need money for Marcus's bail, and I need a place to stay. They've frozen all our accounts. Anger surged within me. So now you need me? After years of treating me like I didn't matter. Honey, please, I'm your mother. Family helps family. Family? I scoffed. You stole my college fund. You chose Marcus's schemes over my wedding day. I'm sorry, Floria. We can make this right, I promise. I looked over at Lily, sleeping peacefully in her crib. No, Mom, I have my own family to protect. I can't get involved in your mess. But where will I go? What will I do? I took a deep breath. Figure it out, just like I had to. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up, my hands shaking, and Jack pulled me close. You did the right thing, Floria, he murmured. We can't let them drive us back into their drama. 5 years went by in a blink. Lily had blossomed into a spunky little artist, and I was preparing for my biggest gallery opening yet. As I hung my final piece, Jack walked in with Lily in tow. Mommy, it's so pretty, Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration. I scooped her up, kissing her cheek. Thanks, sweetie. Want to help me name this one? As Lily pondered, Jack showed me his phone. Check this out. It was a news article. Marcus Thompson sentenced to 15 years. Mother struggles to find employment amid scandal. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Not quite sadness, not quite satisfaction. You okay? Jack asked. I nodded, glancing around the gallery. Yeah. For the first time in forever, I really am. Just then, a crowd started to gather. Art critics, buyers, even a few celebrities. Jack gave me a quick kiss. Knock 'em dead, babe. We'll be right here, cheering you on. I caught sight of my reflection in a nearby mirror. The insecure, overlooked daughter was gone. In her place stood a confident artist, a loving mother, and a devoted wife. Ready, Miss Thompson? My assistant asked, smiling. I squeezed Jack's hand and ruffled Lily's hair. More than ready. Let's do this. As I stepped forward to address the crowd, I felt nothing but gratitude for my chosen family and the bright future ahead. The toxic influences of my past were just that, in the past, and as I began my speech, I knew that the best was yet to come. Now here's a question for you. If you were in Floria's shoes, would you have tipped off the authorities about your family's illegal activities? Or would you have kept quiet, even after years of mistreatment? This dilemma pits family loyalty against personal integrity, and it's a tough call. What would you do in this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could spark some really interesting discussions. If you enjoyed Floria's journey and want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to us and helps bring more compelling stories to life. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Alex. Moving in with my mom seemed like the only option when times got tough. It was supposed to be temporary, a safe haven for me and my 3-year-old son, Jamie, who struggles with severe asthma. But it quickly turned into one of the hardest periods of our lives. Mom, could you please smoke outside? Jamie's having trouble breathing. I found myself pleading just days after we moved in. The smoke was thick, hanging in the house like a suffocating fog. A little smoke won't hurt him. You're just being overly sensitive, Alex. My mom dismissed my concern with a casual wave, a lit cigarette dangling from her fingers. She never took Jamie's condition seriously. Please, Mom, just understand. The doctor said his asthma could get worse if he's around smoke. I tried to keep my voice calm, but it was hard. I felt like I was hitting a wall again and again. Oh, doctors exaggerate. I smoked around you when you were a kid, and look at you. You're all grown up and fine, she laughed, as if it were a joke. But it wasn't funny, not with Jamie coughing in the next room. a sound that tightened my chest every time. One day, Jamie's coughing got worse. His breaths came in shallow, wheezing gasps, and panic shot through me. "Mom, we need to go to the hospital. It's bad," I said, grabbing the car keys with trembling hands. "Again with this drama? You're going to drag him to the hospital every time he coughs," she scoffed, blowing a cloud of smoke in my direction. "It's not just a cough, Mom. He can't breathe properly." I could barely hold back my frustration, my eyes darting to Jamie, his small hand clutching his throat. At the hospital, it was the same routine. Nebulizers, steroids, worried looks from the nurses. But all I could think about was the home we were supposed to feel safe in. "We can't keep living like this," I whispered to Jamie as he lay in the hospital bed, tubes running from his tiny arm. He nodded, his wide eyes trusting, so small and vulnerable. I was all he had. Driving back, the silence in the car was unbearable. Jamie was asleep, exhausted, and I dreaded the confrontation waiting at home. "Where have you been? It's late." My mom snapped as soon as we walked through the door, the familiar scent of smoke hitting me harder than before. A reminder of what we were returning to. "He was in the hospital, Mom. We almost lost him tonight," I said quietly, holding back the anger and fear that threatened to spill out. "And whose fault is that? Maybe if you weren't so paranoid, he wouldn't be so weak." Her words stung worse than the smoke filling my lungs. That night, I lay awake beside Jamie, his breathing finally steady. I knew something had to change. I couldn't let my mom's choices endanger my son's life. This wasn't just about a temporary stay anymore. It was about Jamie's health, his future. I had to make a decision. Suddenly, Jamie's coughing escalated, turning into a full-blown struggle for air. I rushed to his side. "Jamie, buddy, can you breathe?" Panic surged as I watched him gasp, his face reddening. His breathing grew more labored, wheezes growing louder and more desperate. It was too much. It was an asthma attack, and a bad one. "We need to go to the hospital now," I declared, scooping him up and heading for the door. "What's all this fuss about?" my mom asked, more irritated than concerned. "Jamie's having a severe asthma attack. We need to get him to the hospital immediately," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear swirling inside me. "A hospital again?" My mother rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed. "You're just overreacting. It's just a little smoke. He needs to get used to it." I stared at her, disbelief and anger bubbling inside me. "He could die, Mom. Don't you get that?" My voice cracked, the fear for Jamie's life making my heart race. "Oh, stop being so dramatic. You're always so controlling, trying to dictate how I live in my own house." She waved me off, completely dismissing the seriousness of the situation. There was no time to argue. I rushed Jamie out to the car and drove as fast as I could, my hands shaking on the wheel, my mind racing with worry. At the hospital, the medical team sprang into action the moment we arrived, taking Jamie from my arms and hooking him up to machines. I watched them work, a mix of gratitude and terror swirling inside me. The doctors moved quickly, their faces serious and focused. "He's stable for now, but it was a close call," one of the doctors said after a while. "You did the right thing bringing him in. His condition could have gotten much worse if you had waited." When we returned home late that night, the house was quiet, but the smell of smoke hit me harder than before. It was a bitter reminder of why we'd ended up in the emergency room. Jamie was asleep in my arms, his breathing finally steady after the treatment. As I gently laid him on the couch, trying not to wake him, my mother appeared in the doorway, her face stern, a cigarette glowing between her fingers. "We need to talk," she said, her voice firm, cutting through the silence. I nodded, bracing myself. "We can't keep doing this, Mom. It's not safe for Jamie." She took a long drag from her cigarette, exhaling slowly, the smoke swirling around her. I've made up my mind, Alex. I'm not changing my habits in my own house. If you and Jamie can't handle that, then maybe it's best if you find somewhere else to live. Her words hit me harder than I expected. You're really going to choose smoking over your grandson's health? This is my home, Alex. I won't be dictated to on how I should live. Not even by you, she replied coldly. I looked down at Jamie, his small chest rising and falling peacefully, for now. A fierce protectiveness surged through me. If that's your decision, then we'll leave. I won't let Jamie suffer because of your smoking. Then leave, she said simply, as if it were the easiest thing in the world. I packed a few essentials, taking one last look around the house that had been my childhood home. It was filled with memories, both good and bad, but now it felt like a prison. One that could cost Jamie his health or worse. With Jamie still cradled in my arms, I stepped out into the cool night air. The local homeless shelter would have to do for now. It wasn't much, but it was a start, somewhere Jamie could finally breathe freely. At the shelter, I explained our situation, and the staff were understanding. They offered us a small room with clean bedding. It was stark and simple, but it was safe. As I tucked Jimmy into bed, wrapping the blanket snugly around him, a wave of emotions washed over me. Relief, sadness, but also a deep, unshakable resolve. As Jamie slept soundly beside me, his breathing easy for the first time in days, I knew I had made the right decision. No matter how hard the road ahead would be, I would protect him. After all, that's what parents do. We make the hard choices, we sacrifice, and we do it all for love. A few days later, one of the shelter counselors, Maria, handed me a list of subsidized housing options. They'd prioritize cases with medical needs, so Jamie's condition might move you up the waiting list, she explained. Thank you, Maria. I don't know what I'd do without all this help, I replied, a surge of gratitude filling me. Maria smiled and patted my shoulder. You're doing great, Alex. It's tough, but you're not alone here. The support from the shelter community was overwhelming. Unlike my mother, these people didn't offer empty words. They provided real, actionable help. Other parents shared their experiences, offering tips on navigating social services, while the staff arranged workshops on financial planning and tenant rights. In the afternoons, I used the shelter's old computers to search for job openings. I needed something flexible enough to let me care for Jamie, but I was determined to rebuild our lives. But stable enough to secure our future. I applied to countless positions, from retail to administrative roles. Anything that seemed like a potential fit. After one particularly tough day, filled with unsuccessful job interviews, I returned to the shelter feeling utterly defeated. That's when I found a note pinned to the door of our room. It was from a local business owner who often donated to the shelter. Alex, heard you're looking for work. Stop by my shop tomorrow. Let's talk. Tom. That unexpected opportunity lifted my spirits. The next day, I met with Tom, who owned a small hardware store. He needed someone to manage the front end. We talked, and impressed by my eagerness and the determination he'd heard about from the shelter staff, he offered me the job on the spot. As weeks turned into months, our lives began to stabilize. I secured the job with Tom, and our names moved up on the housing list. Jamie's laughter became a constant, replacing the echoes of our past struggles. Life, with its new routines, work at the hardware store and evenings with Jamie, finally felt stable, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. But just as we were finding our footing, fate dealt another hand, this time affecting the person we'd left behind. One evening, after a long day of work followed by a joyful dinner with Jamie in our small room at the shelter, I received a call from an old neighbor. The news was shocking, though it felt like an inevitable conclusion to the path my mother had chosen. Alex, there was a fire at your mom's house. She's okay, but the house is gone, the neighbor explained, her voice thick with concern and disbelief. A cold shiver ran down my spine. What happened? It was her cigarettes. She fell asleep with one lit, and the whole place went up. She's lucky to be alive. Hanging up the phone, I sat down heavily. Jamie looked up at me with wide, questioning eyes. Is Grandma okay? He asked softly. She's okay, buddy. She's safe. I reassured him, though my mind raced. The irony wasn't lost on me. My mother had risked everything with her smoking, and now it had cost her everything. Finally, the call came that changed our lives forever. Mr. Alex, we have an apartment available for you and Jamie, the voice from the housing agency announced one bright morning. It was a small 2-bedroom in a new building designed for families like ours, with rent adjusted to our income, making it affordable. As we moved into our new apartment, a palpable sense of relief washed over me. Unpacking boxes and setting up Jamie's new room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for so long. Jamie ran around, his laughter echoing in the empty spaces, filling them with hope and light. Life had taught us a harsh lesson in the most dramatic way possible. My mother, now staying with a relative, was on her own journey, hopefully reconsidering her habits. For us, it was a new chapter, one filled with fresh starts and the promise of a healthier, happier future. As our story comes to a close, I'd like to ask you something that might stir some reflection. If you were in Alex's shoes, would you have tried to reconcile with your mother after she lost her home? Or would you maintain your distance to protect your child's health? Where would you draw the line in family relationships, especially when health is at risk? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input enriches our community discussions. And if you like this video and want to see more stories like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue bringing content that touches the heart and provokes thought. Thanks for watching.
Hey there, I'm Sarah, 28, and crushing it in the marketing world. And the best part? I just got engaged to Mark, the man of my dreams. He's an insanely talented architect, the kind of guy whose smile could melt glaciers. We've been together for 2 years, and every day has been amazing. But I've got to be honest, my family life, it's complicated. My dad passed away when I was a kid, so it's been just me and my mom, Linda, against the world. Don't get me wrong, I love her, but she has this habit of wanting to control every little thing in my life. When I introduced her to Mark, I was over the moon. This guy is everything. But Mom, she had this look, like she was mentally gearing up for battle. I brushed it off as her being protective, typical stuff, right? Now Mark's family? Totally different vibe. His mom, Jessica, is like this big, warm hug in human form. The first time I met her, she hugged me so tight I thought I might need a chiropractor, but in the best way. Sarah, honey, welcome to the family, she'd said with the kind of twinkle in her eye that makes you want to melt. I've always wanted a daughter, and now I have one. I almost cried, feeling a kind of maternal warmth I hadn't known in years. But as Mark and I started planning the wedding, things got tricky. My mom started nitpicking. The venue? Too small. The flowers? Too tacky. And every time I mentioned Jessica, Mom's face would do this thing. This weird twitch. What's the problem, Mom? I finally asked after she made another snide comment about Jessica's dress for the engagement party. Nothing, sweetie, she said, her smile as tight as my jeans after Thanksgiving. I just want everything to be perfect for my little girl. I let it slide, chalking it up to pre-wedding stress. Weddings are stressful, right? No need to overthink. Then came the family dinner. Oh man, talk about awkward. We're sitting at this fancy restaurant Mark picked out, and I swear you could feel the tension across the table. My mom's sitting across from Jessica, and Jessica, being her sweet self, tries to make conversation. So Linda, Sarah tells me you work in finance. That must be interesting. My mom's response, a forced smile and a stiff, it pays the bills. I glanced at Mark, silently begging for help. He squeezed my hand under the table and jumped in with some story about a crazy client. God, I love him. The rest of the night was a minefield of passive-aggressive comments and awkward silences. By dessert, I was ready to bury my face in my tiramisu just to escape the tension. As we said our goodbyes in the parking lot, Mark pulled me aside. "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "Yeah, that was weird, right?" I said, needing confirmation. "Definitely not just you," he chuckled, pulling me into a hug. "But hey, they're just being protective. It'll get better." I nodded, wanting to believe him. But as I watched our moms exchange stiff, almost robotic hugs, I couldn't shake this gut feeling that something was seriously off. Fast forward to a weekend of cleaning out my mom's attic, knee-deep in dust and old memories. It felt like an episode of Hoarders up there. That's when I found it, a beat-up photo album buried behind stacks of ancient National Geographics. "Mom, what's this?" I called, flipping it open. And oh boy, was I not ready for what I found. There she was, young, carefree, arm in arm with some guy I'd never seen before. They looked happy, like the kind of happy I feel with Mark. "Oh, that's nothing," my mom said quickly, trying to take it from me, but I held on. "Mom, who is this guy?" "He's in like every picture." She sighed, her shoulders sinking. "That's Robert. He was my fiancé. A long time ago." My jaw dropped. "Fiancé? Mom, how come I've never heard about this?" She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a different time. "Sarah, things didn't work out." Mom's voice was flat, but I could tell there was so much more buried beneath the surface. Classic Linda, clamming up like a bear trap. I knew pressing her wouldn't get me anywhere, so I let it slide for now. Meanwhile, Mark had his own family drama brewing. He called me later that night, his voice tight with stress. "Babe, you're not going to believe what just happened." I could hear the tension through the phone. "What's going on?" I asked my mom about the weird vibe between her and your mom at dinner, and she totally freaked out. My heart skipped a beat. "Freaked out? What do you mean?" She started crying. "Sarah, my mom never cries." Then she dropped this bomb on me, and you're not going to believe it. My stomach churned. "Try me. My dad, he was your mom's ex-fiancé. The one who broke off their engagement." I almost dropped the phone. "Wait, what? Are you serious?" "Dead serious," Mark said, sounding just as shaken. "Mom said they met right after he ended things with your mom. It was a whirlwind. They got married fast. She said she's always felt guilty about it, but I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Mark, this is insane. What are we going to do? I think we need to talk to them, both of them, together." That's how we found ourselves in the most painfully awkward family meeting of all time. Mom, Jessica, Mark, and me, all crammed into our tiny living room. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. "All right, we know," I said, breaking the silence. "We know about Robert, about the engagement, everything." Mom's face went pale, while Jessica looked like she might be sick. "You had no right." Mom spat at Jessica, her voice quivering with fury. "No right to tell them. They deserve to know, Linda." Jessica replied softly, her eyes filled with regret. "We can't keep living with this secret." Mom exploded. "You stole him from me. You ruined my life." "It wasn't like that, Linda," Jessica pleaded, her voice cracking. "Robert had already ended things with you when we met. It just happened." But Mom wasn't hearing any of it. She was screaming, sobbing, throwing accusations like they were grenades. I had never seen her so raw, so broken. "Mom, please," I begged, my voice trembling. "This was decades ago. Can't we just—" "You don't understand, Sarah," she cried. "He was the love of my life, and she took him away." I felt torn in two. One part of me wanted to comfort her, to soothe away the years of pain and bitterness. But the other part was furious. How could she have kept this from me? How could she let this bitterness poison what was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my life? Mark wasn't faring much better. He sat beside me, silent and shell-shocked, as though his entire world had just been flipped upside down. "Why didn't you ever tell me, Mom?" he finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jessica wiped away her tears. "We thought it was best to leave the past in the past. We never imagined it would come to this." The room fell silent, the weight of decades-old secrets pressing down on all of us. I looked at Mark, saw the confusion and hurt in his eyes, and knew he was feeling the same storm of emotions. After that bombshell of a family meeting, things only got worse. Mom turned into a whirlwind of bitterness, stirring up trouble wherever she could. It started with whispers at church, sideways glances from people who had known us for years. Then one day at the grocery store, I overheard Mrs. Johnson gossiping in the next aisle. "Did you hear about poor Linda?" she was saying to her friend. "Her daughter's marrying into the family that ruined her life. Can you imagine?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I gripped the shopping cart until my knuckles turned white and got the hell out of there. Back home, I tried reasoning with Mom. "This is ancient history. Can't you just let it go?" She looked at me like I'd suggested we jump off a cliff. "Let it go? Oh, Sarah, that woman stole my future. And now she's stealing my daughter too." "Mom, that's not. It's me or them, Sarah. You can't have both. I won't be at that wedding if she's there." It felt like someone was tearing me in half. "Mom, please. Don't make me choose." But she just turned away, leaving me standing there, feeling like a little kid all over again. Mark was my rock through all of this, but even he was starting to crack. "Maybe we should just elope," he suggested one night, only half joking. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Don't tempt me. And then the accidents started happening. First, my wedding dress. Mom had offered to take it in for alterations, but when she brought it back, it was 3 sizes too small. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry," she'd said, her eyes wide with fake innocence. The seamstress must have made a mistake. Then our venue called, saying someone had canceled our reservation. I didn't need to guess who that someone sounded like. But the final straw was when Mark's ex, Amber, showed up at our door. "Mark, is it true? Are you only marrying Sarah because she's pregnant?" Mark's jaw dropped. "What? Amber, where did you hear that?" I felt my blood run cold. There was only one person who could have started that rumor. It all came to a head at our engagement party. Mom showed up uninvited, 3 sheets to the wind, spoiling for a fight. She stumbled into the room, slurring her words. "There she is." She pointed at Jessica, her voice thick with venom. The homewrecker herself. The room fell into an icy silence. You could have heard a pin drop. "Linda, please," Jessica started, but Mom wasn't done. She pointed at Jessica, voice trembling with rage. "You took everything from me, my love, my future, and now my daughter." I saw Mark tensing beside me, ready to step in, but something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration and resentment rose to the surface, and before I knew it, I was shouting. "Enough." The word echoed in the stunned silence. "That's enough, Mom." She blinked, her fury halting for a second, shock sobering her up fast. "You want to know who's really ruining lives here? It's you. You and your bitterness. Your inability to let go of the past." "Sarah, how dare you?" Mom started, her voice shaking. But I wasn't finished. "No, how dare you?" I felt my voice crack, but I pressed on. "How dare you try to sabotage the happiest day of my life because of something that happened before I was even born? How dare you spread lies and try to turn people against us?" Mom's face crumpled, but I couldn't stop. It was like a dam had broken inside me. "Jessica has been nothing but kind to me. She's more of a mother to me than you've been lately. And Mark." I glanced at him, feeling his steady presence beside me. "He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. If you can't see that, if you can't be happy for me, then maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding after all." The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Mom stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Then, without a word, she stormed out. Mark's arm wrapped around me, steadying me. Only then did I realize I was shaking. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. I had just stood up to my mom for the first time in my life, and it felt both terrifying and liberating. Jessica approached us, tears brimming in her eyes. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never meant." I cut her off, wrapping her in a hug. "It's not your fault. None of this is." As I looked around the room at the shocked faces of our guests, a realization hit me. This was it, a turning point. No more tiptoeing around Mom's feelings. No more letting her toxic behavior control our lives. After the engagement party fiasco, Mark and I made a decision. Enough was enough. We were going to elope, consequences be damned. We planned a secret ceremony, just us, our closest friends, and Mark's family. No drama. No Mom. Just love. Meanwhile, Mom's web of lies began to unravel. My friend Jen confessed that Mom had tried to turn her against me. That opened the floodgates. Suddenly, everyone had a story about Mom's manipulations. Karma hit her hard. The phone stopped ringing. Invitations dried up. Even her coworkers started keeping their distance. It was like the whole town had put her in a timeout. On our wedding day, Mom showed up at my empty apartment, frantic. She called everyone she could think of, desperate to find me. Finally, our nosy neighbor, Mrs. Perez, spilled the beans, probably savoring every second of it. Mark and I exchanged vows in a sun-drenched garden, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about us. Jessica's speech brought everyone to tears, gracefully acknowledging the past but focusing on the bright future ahead. As we kissed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was free from the drama, the toxicity, free to love Mark without any shadows looming over us. Later we heard that Mom had gotten into a fender bender driving home alone. It was almost like the universe was giving her a gentle tap on the shoulder, reminding her what happens when you try to wreck someone else's happiness. As Mark and I jetted off for our honeymoon, I felt a bittersweet mix of sadness and relief. I hoped that one day Mom would find peace, but for now I was focused on my future, on building a life with Mark based on love, trust, and freedom from all the toxic baggage of the past. This was a new chapter, and damned, did it feel good to turn the page. Now I've got a question for you. If you were Sarah, would you ever forgive Linda for her actions? Or is there a point where toxic behavior becomes unforgivable, even from a parent? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and opinions might help others going through something similar. If you enjoyed this story and want more content like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more engaging stories and discussions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm 28, bright-eyed and eager, teaching little ones their ABCs. Life's good, especially when I meet Michael. He's tall, a bit geeky, a software engineer with a smile that could melt anyone. We click instantly, and before I know it, we're saying our vows and moving into our cozy little apartment. I'm over the moon when I find out I'm pregnant, telling Michael. His face was priceless. We're both thrilled to start our family. But then, enter Evelyn, my mother-in-law. Where do I even begin? Sarah, dear, don't you think you should dust more often? She'd say, swiping a finger along our bookshelf. Or, Michael always loved my pot roast. I'll have to show you the recipe sometime. It's like nothing I do is ever good enough for Queen Evelyn. One day, I'm in the kitchen making lasagna, and here comes Evelyn, gliding in like she owns the place. Oh, Sarah, she tuts, eyeing my dish. Is that how you layer it? No wonder Michael's losing weight. I grit my teeth. Evelyn, I appreciate the advice, but this is how I make it. Well, if you say so, dear. I just want what's best for my son. And Michael? He's as helpful as a chocolate teapot when it comes to standing up to her. She means well, Sarah, he'd say, shrugging. Let's just keep the peace, okay? My best friend Lisa, though, sees right through it. Over coffee one day, she says, Girl, this Evelyn situation is toxic. You need to set boundaries before it gets worse. I stir my latte and sigh. I know, but Michael loves her. I don't want to cause trouble. It'll get better, right? Lisa gives me that look. Sarah, honey, wake up. This isn't going to magically fix itself. Deep down, I know she's right, but I'm stubborn. And pregnant. I should be picking out nursery colors and onesies, not dealing with family drama. So I put on a brave face, telling myself everything will be fine. Once the baby comes, everything will fall into place, right? Fast forward to the big day. Emily is born via emergency C-section. I'm exhausted, sore, trying to figure out how to be a mom. Emily, though, is perfect. She makes all the pain worth it. One morning, as I'm struggling to get out of bed, I hear the front door open. Wonderful. Hurricane Evelyn blows in, uninvited. Oh my, this place is a disaster, Sarah. How can you let Michael come home to this? I grit my teeth. Evelyn, I just had surgery. The doctor said. Nonsense. When I had Michael, I was up and about in no time. You're just not trying hard enough. Days blur together. Between breastfeeding, changing diapers, and trying to recover, Evelyn's criticism echoes constantly. One afternoon, I'm dozing on the couch with Emily when Evelyn barges in. Sarah, the kitchen is a mess. Get up and clean it now. I blinked, disoriented. Evelyn, please, I'm exhausted. Can it wait? Lazy girl. No wonder Michael looks stressed. He works all day, and you can't even keep the house clean. Tears well up in my eyes. I'm doing my best. I'm in pain, and Emily needs me. Excuses, excuses. In my day, women knew how to be proper wives and mothers. Just then, Michael walks in. Finally, I think he'll step in. Michael, Evelyn says, "Thank goodness you're home. Look at this mess. Your wife refuses to clean. She's being disrespectful to me and to you." I look at Michael, hoping, praying, he'll defend me. Michael looks uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. "Michael, please," I plead, "tell her I need to rest." The doctor said. "Don't you dare blame the doctor." Evelyn shrieks. "Michael, are you really going to let her speak to me like this after everything I've done for you?" Michael runs a hand through his hair, torn. "Sarah, maybe you could just tidy up a bit, to keep the peace." I stare at him, incredulous. "Are you serious? I can barely walk." Evelyn's voice turns sickly sweet. "See how she defies you, Michael? A good wife would listen to her husband." What happens next feels like slow motion. Michael's face hardens, and before I can react, his hand connects with my cheek. The slap echoes through the room, and silence falls. I touch my stinging face, shock and disbelief flooding me. Emily starts crying, and I clutch her close, backing away from Michael. "There," Evelyn says smugly. "Sometimes a woman needs to be put in her place." I'm shaking, tears streaming down my face. This can't be happening. I fumble for my phone and dial Lisa's number. "Lisa, I need help. Can you come over, please?" 20 minutes later, Lisa bursts through the door with her brother, Mark, in tow. One look at my face and Lisa's eyes narrow. What the hell happened here? Mark, always the lawyer, takes charge. "Sarah, grab what you need for you and the baby. You're not staying here tonight." As I hurriedly pack a bag, the raised voices from the living room blur together. Michael pleading, Evelyn screeching, and Mark's firm, legal tone standing out among the chaos. Lisa helps me to the car, Emily secured in her carrier. As we pull away, I catch a glimpse of Michael standing on the porch, looking conflicted. Lisa's spare room becomes my sanctuary. Emily and I settle in, surrounded by boxes of hastily packed belongings and a sea of uncertainty. But at least we're safe. "You sure you want to go through with this?" Lisa asks one morning, watching me fill out divorce papers. "What choice do I have? I can't go back, not after that." I reply, the weight of my decision heavy. She nods, understanding in her eyes. "Have you thought about therapy? It might help sort through all of this mess." Turns out, she was right. My therapist, Dr. Chen, became my lifeline. In her cozy office, I started to unpack years of manipulation I hadn't even realized I'd endured. "Sarah, I want you to start documenting Evelyn's behavior," Dr. Chen suggested one day. "Not just recent events, but everything you can remember." As I dug through my memories, a pattern emerged: Evelyn's constant criticism, her way of turning Michael against me. It all started to make a sick kind of sense. One night, unable to sleep, I scrolled through Michael's old Facebook photos. A face caught my eye: his ex-girlfriend, Jessica. On a whim, I sent her a message. Jessica's reply came faster than I expected. "Sarah, oh my God. I've wanted to reach out to you for years. Are you okay?" We met for coffee, and the floodgates opened. Jessica's story mirrored mine in so many ways. Evelyn's criticism, the manipulation, Michael's inability to stand up to his mother. It was like she had this hold over him. Jessica explained, stirring her latte. "I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out." As we talked, my phone buzzed. Michael again. I silenced it, ignoring his pleas for forgiveness. "He keeps saying he'll change," I confided to Jessica, "but I don't think I can ever trust him again." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Stay strong, Sarah. You're doing the right thing." Back at work, trying to find some normalcy, I found an unexpected ally in James, a fellow teacher. "Rough night?" he asked one morning, noticing the bags under my eyes. Before I knew it, I was spilling everything. James listened without judgment, offering a shoulder to cry on and practical advice. "My sister went through something similar," he shared. "It's tough, but you're tougher. And hey, if you ever need someone to watch Emily so you can take a breather, I'm your guy." As the weeks passed, I felt stronger. The Sarah who had let Evelyn walk all over her was fading, replaced by someone who knew her worth. And with every small victory, Every peaceful night with Emily, every day I didn't cave to Michael's begging. I knew I was on the right path. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I stood before the courthouse with a mix of dread and determination swirling in my stomach. This was it, the day everything would change. "You've got this," Lisa whispered, squeezing my hand as we walked inside. My lawyer laid out our case, presenting evidence of emotional abuse and that fateful slap. I held my breath, waiting for the judge's decision. Full custody granted to Sarah, with supervised visitation for Michael. Relief washed over me. Emily was safe. We were free. As we left the courtroom, a familiar voice called out, "Sarah, can we talk?" I turned to see Michael's sister, Amy. I had always liked her, though we were never close. I need to tell you something," Amy said, her voice quiet. "About Mom, about everything." Over coffee, Amy spilled years of family secrets, Evelyn's manipulation, the wedges she had driven between siblings, partners, friends. "I should have spoken up sooner," Amy said, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry." Sarah nodded, her voice steady. "I'm willing to testify if it helps." Amy's testimony was the final nail in Evelyn's coffin. The family rift that followed was ugly but necessary. Some sided with Evelyn, but many, seeing the truth at last, chose to cut ties. Months passed, and I threw myself into work, finding solace in my students and the daily routine. A promotion to lead teacher came as a surprise, but a welcome one. "You deserve it," James said, his smile warming something inside me that I thought had long been broken. Then came the news of Evelyn's downfall. Her neighbor had filed a restraining order after enduring months of her meddling and manipulation. Karma had finally caught up with her. Even Michael, I learned, had seen the light. He'd cut contact with Evelyn and started therapy. A part of me felt relief for Emily's sake, but that chapter of my life was closed. Inspired by my own journey, I started a support group for survivors of family abuse. Sharing our stories, finding strength together, it became a lifeline for so many women, just as it had for me. And through it all, James's support never wavered. Movie nights with Emily, surprise lunches at work. Slowly, cautiously, our friendship grew into something more. "I'm not rushing you," he said one night, his hand gently resting on mine. "We've got all the time in the world." Before I knew it, Emily was turning 5. Her birthday party was everything I had dreamed of: laughter, love, and not a toxic influence in sight. "Mommy, can I open my presents now?" Emily bounced with excitement. "Go for it, sweetie," I laughed, catching James's eye across the room. His wink sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. Michael showed up briefly, a chastened man, bearing gifts and apologies. I accepted both with grace, thankful for the peace we have finally found. As the party wound down, I stood on the porch watching the sunset. 5 years ago, I could never have imagined this life, the strength I'd found, the love I built, the toxic ties I cut. Every step of the journey had led me here. "Penny, for your thoughts." James appeared beside me, wrapping his arm around my waist. I leaned into him, smiling, just thinking how far we've come. How good life can be when you surround yourself with the right people. He kissed my forehead softly, to new horizons. I nodded, my heart full. To new horizons. Inside, Emily's laughter rang out, a sweet reminder of all I had fought for. The road hadn't been easy, but standing here now, I knew every struggle had been worth it. This was our happy ending, or rather, our happy beginning. Now I've got a question for you. Do you think Sarah should have given Michael a second chance after he slapped her, considering Evelyn's manipulation? Or was leaving the right call? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and opinions matter, and they might help someone going through a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories and discussions. Let's keep the conversation going. Hi, I'm Vivian, and lately, life has been nothing short of a whirlwind. Honestly, I never thought I'd be sharing this, but life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. I'm 28, a marketing executive, and up until recently, I thought I had everything figured out. I married Mark, my college sweetheart, a little over a year ago. We were riding high, especially when we found out I was pregnant. It was our little secret, and we were over the moon with excitement. "Mark, can you believe it? We're going to be parents," I squealed one night, barely able to contain myself. He pulled me into a tight hug, his eyes sparkling. I know, Viv, it's amazing. But remember, we're keeping it quiet until after the first trimester, he reminded me gently. I nodded, understanding the need for caution, but keeping such a huge secret was harder than I expected, especially around Mark's family. Oh, his family. Where do I even begin? There's Sandra, my mother-in-law, a woman who still seems to think her grown son needs constant mothering. Then there's Robert, Mark's dad, who's about as involved in family matters as the armchair he sits in. And Mark's siblings. Let's just say, Amy, his sister, looks at me like I stole her favorite toy, while Jake, his brother, barely acknowledges I exist. Family gatherings are always an experience, like last Sunday's lunch, for example. Mark, honey, your shirt's wrinkled. Viv, don't you know how to use an iron? Sandra's voice was sharp enough to slice through glass. I bit back my irritation. I'll make sure to double-check next time, Sandra, I replied, forcing a smile. Amy jumped in, adding fuel to the fire. Oh, Viv, don't stress. Not everyone's cut out for homemaking, she said with a smirk. I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I kept smiling, refusing to give them the satisfaction. Later I called my best friend Tessa to vent. If Sandra makes one more passive-aggressive comment about my housekeeping, I'm going to lose it, I groaned. Tessa's laughter crackled through the phone. Girl, you married Mark, not his mother. Tell her to back off. I wish it were that simple. I sighed. Mark hates conflict, and I don't want to stir things up. But I swear, sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in their expectations. You've got to stand up for yourself, Viv. Especially now with a baby on the way, she said, always the voice of reason. She was right, of course. But the thought of confrontation made my stomach churn, though, to be fair, that could have been the morning sickness. As the weeks passed, it became harder to keep our little secret. One night, while we were lying in bed, Mark turned to me, his face a mixture of excitement and nerves. Viv, I think it's time. Let's tell them about the baby at the family dinner next week, he said, his eyes searching mine. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to keep our bubble of happiness intact, away from Sandra's critical gaze and Amy's jealousy. But I knew we couldn't hide it forever. Okay, I agreed, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Let's do it. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this announcement would change everything. I just didn't realize how right I was, or how wrong things were about to go. The day of the family dinner arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. I'd spent hours cooking, hoping to finally impress Sandra. But of course, that was a pipe dream. Vivian, dear, the roast is a bit dry. Did you forget to baste it? Sandra's voice dripped with false sweetness. I forced another smile. I'll keep that in mind for next time. And that dress, is it new? It's a bit tight, don't you think? She added, her gaze drifting to my waist. Before I could respond, Mark cleared his throat. Actually, Mom, we have some news. This was it. I took a deep breath, nodding at Mark for him to continue. Vivian and I were having a baby. For a moment, there was silence. Then chaos. Oh, sweetie, that's wonderful. Robert beamed, offering a rare smile. Jake mumbled a half-hearted congratulations, while Amy's face twisted into an unmistakable scowl. But Sandra, her reaction was the one that shook me. Are you sure, Mark? How do you know she's not lying? My jaw dropped. Excuse me. Sandra's eyes narrowed. It's just convenient timing, isn't it? Just as Mark's career is taking off. What are you talking about, Mom? Mark sounded genuinely confused. Amy, of course, jumped in. Remember when Viv was so insistent about birth control? Funny how that's changed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That was over a year ago. We decided together that we were ready for a family. I protested, feeling the weight of their judgment crushing down on me. This was supposed to be happy news. Mark's voice lacked conviction, and I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. Sandra stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. If you're really pregnant, prove it. Prove it? I echoed, my voice shaking with disbelief and anger. What, you want me to pee on a stick right here? Don't be crass, Vivian. A proper blood test would suffice. Sandra snapped. I looked at Mark, expecting him to shut this down, to defend me. Instead, he looked torn, his gaze shifting between his mother and me. Maybe it's not such a bad idea, Viv, he said softly, just to put everyone's minds at ease. My world started to spin. How could he even consider this? This is insane. I'm leaving, I said, turning to go. But Sandra blocked my path. Not so fast. If you walk out that door, we'll all know you're lying. Get out of my way, Sandra. And then it happened. So fast, yet in slow motion. Sandra's hands shot out, shoving me backward. I stumbled, arms flailing as I tried to regain my balance. But it was too late. I saw Jake lunging toward me, his fingers grazing my arm as I tumbled down the stairs. Everything went black. Tears streamed down my face as the scene replayed in my mind. Sandra's hateful expression, Amy's smug face, Mark's weakness, and Jake's failed attempt to catch me. How could this be happening? As the ambulance raced to the hospital, only one thought consumed me. Would my baby survive this betrayal? And if so, how could I ever trust my husband or his family again? The ambulance screeched to a halt, and I was rushed into the ER. Doctors and nurses swarmed around me, their voices a blur of medical jargon. All I could focus on was one terrifying question. Was my baby okay? I blinked awake to the steady beeping of monitors. A doctor stood by my bed, smiling gently. Mrs. Thompson, you're awake. Good news, your baby is safe. You're both going to be okay. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a wave of anger as I remembered why I was there. Mark hovered nearby, pale and conflicted. Viv, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. What happened? I cut him off, fury bubbling to the surface. Your mother pushed me down the stairs. That's what happened. He flinched. Mom says it was an accident. She was just trying to stop you from leaving. Before I could respond, Tessa burst into the room like a whirlwind. Vivian, oh my God, are you okay? She turned to Mark, her eyes blazing. And you? How could you let this happen? It wasn't. I didn't. Save it, Tessa snapped, cutting him off. She turned back to me, her voice soft. I'm here now, Viv. Whatever you need. As Mark left to get some air, I filled Tessa in on everything. Her face grew darker with every word. We're not letting them get away with this, she said firmly. Just then, familiar voices echoed from the hallway, Sandra and Amy. Just need to convince Mark it was an accident. Vivian's always been clumsy, probably faking a whole pregnancy anyway. Tessa's eyes widened. Without a word, she pulled out her phone and started recording. As their voices faded, I felt something inside me harden. Enough was enough. Tess, I need your help. We're going to fight back. Over the next few hours, we formulated a plan. Tessa sweet-talked a nurse into giving us copies of my medical records, which clearly showed the pregnancy and injuries consistent with being pushed. We should get statements from the staff too, Tessa suggested. They can confirm your condition when you arrived. I nodded, but hesitated. What about Mark? He's been texting me, full of doubt and clearly believing his mother. Forward them to me. It's all evidence, Viv, Tessa said, her tone determined. As she worked her magic gathering intel, I made a call I never thought I'd have to make. Hello, is this the office of Claire Davidson? I need to speak with her about a domestic abuse case. Tessa returned, triumphant. Got it all, medical records, staff statements, and that lovely recorded conversation of Sandra and Amy plotting. I took a deep breath. Tess, I've made a decision. I'm leaving Mark. Her eyes softened. Are you sure? I have to, for my baby's sake and my home. Just then, Mark walked back in, looking conflicted. Viv, can we talk? Mom wants to come apologize. No, Mark, we can't, I said, cutting him off. And she can't. I'm done. His face fell. What do you mean? I mean I'm leaving. I can't be part of this family anymore. It's not safe for me or our child. But Viv, we can work this out. She said she's done, Mark. Respect that, Tessa interjected, her voice steely. Mark left, looking shell-shocked. As the door closed behind him, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. The road ahead would be hard. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. I turned to Tessa. What now? She smiled, fierce as always. Now we get you out of here and somewhere safe. Then we make them pay. Months flew by, and there I was 7 months pregnant, waddling around Tessa's apartment. My baby bump was impossible to hide, a constant reminder of why I was fighting so hard. Ready for court today? Tessa asked as she handed me a glass of water. I nodded, nervous but determined. As ready as I'll ever be. The courtroom was packed. I spotted Mark and his family on the other side, Sandra looking smug as ever. But not for long. Our lawyer, Claire, was a force of nature. She presented the evidence methodically, my medical records, staff testimonies, and then, Your Honor, I'd like to present audio evidence of the defendants plotting to cover up their actions. The color drained from Sandra and Amy's faces as their own voices echoed through the courtroom. Mark looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Mrs. Thompson, the judge's voice rang out. You pushed your daughter-in-law down a flight of stairs, endangering both her life and that of her unborn child. How do you plead? Sandra sputtered, her composure cracking. It was an accident. I never meant. Save it for your lawyer, Mrs. Thompson. You're facing charges of assault and endangering an unborn child. During a recess, Mark approached me, looking haggard. Viv, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? For a moment, I felt a twinge of pity, maybe even regret. But then I remembered those days in the hospital, his doubt, his weakness. No, Mark. Your apology means nothing. You chose your mother over me and our child. There's no coming back from that. His face crumpled, but I stood firm. I had a future to protect now. Later, the judge's gavel came down like thunder. In the matter of Thompson versus Thompson, this court rules in favor of the plaintiff. Mrs. Vivian Thompson is granted a divorce, full custody of the unborn child, and a settlement of $500,000 for emotional damages and medical expenses. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was over. We had won. 2 years later, I'm blowing up balloons for my daughter Zoe's second birthday. My little warrior, born against all odds, now toddles around, babbling happily. Tessa walks in, arms full of presents. Where's the birthday girl? Auntie Tessa's got goodies. I smile as I watch Zoe squeal with delight, and I can't help but reflect on how much has changed. I'm running my own marketing firm now, turning my pain into purpose by helping other survivors tell their stories. Sandra is serving her sentence. Turns out, pushing pregnant women down the stairs is frowned upon by the justice system. More friends arrive, filling the house with warmth and laughter. These are my people now, the family I've chosen. As the party winds down and I tuck an exhausted Zoe into bed, I whisper, Happy birthday, my brave girl. The world is yours. And mine too. I realize now that this is a world of new beginnings, hard-won and fiercely protected. Whatever comes next, I know we can handle it. After all, we already have. The story you've just heard is now over. But I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have given Mark a second chance? Was I too harsh in rejecting his apology, or was I right to protect myself and my daughter from future harm? This is a tough situation with no easy answers. What would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone going through a similar situation. If you found this story compelling, please give the video a like. It helps more people discover and learn from these difficult experiences. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means everything as we continue to share these important narratives. Hey there, I'm Sarah Thompson, 28 years old, living my best life in the Windy City and killing it as a marketing executive. Life was smooth, until my brother Mark dropped a bomb at our family BBQ. We're having a baby, he announced, beaming with pride, his arm around his wife Melissa. Everyone was ecstatic, hugging, crying, the whole deal. Me, I was genuinely happy for them. I mean, I'm going to be an aunt. But little did I know, that was the start of my personal nightmare. It began innocently enough. Melissa started talking nonstop about organic foods and non-GMO everything. I chalked it up to new mom jitters, but then she eyed my burger like it was poison. Sarah, don't you think you should set a better example? Maybe try a salad? She smiled sweetly, but Mark's look said it all. Next thing I know, Melissa's nitpicking every part of my life. My diet, my weekend plans, even my work hours. Family should come first, Sarah. How can you support us if you're always at the office or out with friends? She'd say. I was stunned. Since when did my life become a group project? But the real kicker, my parents were nodding along like Melissa was some kind of oracle. Honey, Melissa's just trying to look out for the baby, my mom chimed in. Dad added, it's about family unity, Sarah. You understand, right? Standing there, I felt like I was in some twisted episode of The Twilight Zone. But for the sake of peace, I smiled and nodded. Sure, I'll try to make some changes. Thank God for my best friend Alex. Over coffee, I vented everything. Sarah, this is insane. You can't let them run your life like this, she exclaimed, giving me her classic "you're being an idiot" look. I sighed, stirring my latte. I know, but it's family. I'm just trying to be supportive. There's supportive, and then there's being a doormat, girl. You're towing the line. Alex shot back. She was right, of course. But what could I do? I couldn't just walk away from my family. Meanwhile, at work, there was Jake, a total dreamboat, smart and funny, and we clicked instantly. We started grabbing lunch together, and every time his eyes crinkled when he laughed, my heart did a little flip. Sarah, there's this great new restaurant opening Friday, he said one day, flashing that charming smile. Want to check it out? My heart soared, but then I heard Melissa's voice echoing in my head. Family gang night on Friday, Sarah. Don't forget. I hesitated, hating myself. I've got this family thing. Rain check. Jake looked disappointed but smiled anyway. Sure, no problem. Family first, right? As I watched him walk away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something important was slipping through my fingers. A month had passed since Melissa's pregnancy announcement, and I swear she'd become possessed. She'd gone from casually pestering me to full-on micromanaging my life. Sarah, you need to cut back on your work hours, she insisted one morning. It's not good for the baby to be around all that stress. I nearly choked on my coffee. Excuse me? How is my job affecting your baby? Melissa just gave me a condescending look. We're family now. Your negative energy affects us all. I bit my tongue, but inside I was seething. Things only got worse when I overheard her on the phone with Aunt Carol. I'm just so worried about Sarah, she said, her voice dripping with concern. You know how she is, always out partying and drinking. It's not a good influence on the baby. I was floored. I hadn't set foot in a club for months, thanks to her constant guilt tripping. The baby shower was the final straw. I spent weeks planning it, trying to be the perfect sister-in-law. But apparently, nothing was good enough for Queen Melissa. Oh, Sarah, you got soy-based dip. You know I'm avoiding soy, she complained. And these decorations, well, I suppose you did your best. I was about to snap, but Mom jumped in. Sarah, honey, maybe you should have checked with Melissa first. It's her special day after all. That's when I lost it. Her special day? I've bent over backwards trying to make her happy, and nothing is ever good enough. I shouted. The room went silent. Melissa's lip quivered, and suddenly, everyone was comforting her. How could you upset her like that? Mark hissed. Can't you see how fragile she is? I stormed out, feeling like I was losing my mind. Was I really the bad guy here? The next day, Jake found me hiding in the break room at work, eyes red from crying. Sarah, what's going on? He asked softly, his hand resting gently on mine. And just like that, everything poured out. To my surprise, Jake listened without judgment, his touch comforting. Sarah, this isn't right, and you know that. I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. From then on, Jake became my secret escape. We'd have lunch, talk for hours, and for a while, I could forget about the chaos at home. Meanwhile, Alex was on a mission. Sarah, something doesn't add up with Melissa, she said one day. I've been digging, and her story's full of holes. At first, I was skeptical, but then I started noticing things. Melissa's pregnancy symptoms seemed to come and go, conveniently. One day she'd be too nauseous to move, the next she'd be scarfing down sushi. Isn't raw fish bad for the baby? I asked, trying to sound innocent. Melissa shot me a glare. Mind your own business, Sarah. Every pregnancy is different. That's when the real bombshell dropped. I bumped into Lisa, one of Melissa's former coworkers, at the grocery store. Oh, Sarah, how are you handling Melissa's situation? Lisa asked, her tone serious. I frowned. You mean the pregnancy? Lisa's eyes widened. Oh, honey, is that what she's telling you? Look, I shouldn't say anything, but this isn't the first time Melissa's pulled something like this. She has a history of, well, creative storytelling to get what she wants. My head spun. Could it be true? Was Melissa faking a whole thing? As I stood there, the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. One thing was clear. It was time to stop playing nice. Melissa had been manipulating us all, and someone needed to call her bluff. But how could I expose her without tearing my family apart? After my conversation with Lisa, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I decided to confront Melissa, no matter the consequences. I cornered her at our next family dinner. "Melissa, we need to talk," I said firmly. "Your behavior has been controlling and manipulative, and I'm done with it." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, I'm just looking out for this family, unlike some people." By spreading lies? By trying to control my life? I snapped back. Melissa's face twisted in anger. "How dare you? After everything I've done for this family?" Our shouting match drew the attention of everyone at the table. To my surprise, Aunt Carol spoke up. "Melissa dear, Sarah might have a point. You have been a bit demanding lately," Aunt Carol said gently. For a brief moment, I saw panic flash across Melissa's face. But then she burst into tears. "I can't believe you're all ganging up on me. Don't you care about the baby?" she sobbed. Just like that, the tide turned. My parents rushed to comfort her, while Mark shot daggers at me. "Sarah, how could you?" he hissed. "Attacking a pregnant woman? I think you should leave." I stood there stunned as my family turned their backs on me, but my mother's words cut the deepest. "Until you're ready to apologize to Melissa, maybe it's best if you don't come around for a while," she said coldly. Devastated, I found myself at Jake's place that night, sobbing into his shoulder. Alex arrived shortly after, armed with a folder of documents. "Sarah, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice grave. "I've been digging into Melissa's past. She's done this before. Multiple times." Alex laid out a trail of evidence: fake pregnancies, fraudulent schemes, manipulated relationships. My head was spinning. But how could she fool everyone? The doctors, the tests. I asked, still trying to process it all. "She's good, Sarah, really good." But this time, she slipped up, Alex explained. I felt sick. What do I do? If I expose her, I could lose my family forever. Jake took my hand, his voice gentle but firm. "Sarah, you've already lost them. They chose her over you. It's time you chose yourself." His words hit me like a brick. He was right. I'd been so focused on keeping the peace that I completely lost sight of my own self-worth. "You're right," I said quietly, "but how do we prove it? They'll never believe me without solid evidence." Jake's eyes lit up with a plan. "What if we catch her in the act? Record your conversations, gather more proof." It felt sneaky, but I was out of options. I nodded, determination replacing my doubt. "Okay, let's do it, but we need to be smart. Melissa is crafty, and one wrong move could ruin everything." Over the next few weeks, I played my part perfectly. I apologized to Melissa, pretended to fall back in line, and kept my phone recording during every interaction. "Oh, Melissa, I'm so excited for the baby. When's your next ultrasound?" "I'd love to come," I said with a smile. Actually, the doctor says too many people stress the baby. It's best if I go alone," she replied, her voice tight. "Gotcha." I also accidentally ran into more of Melissa's old acquaintances, each one revealing more of her shady past. It was exhausting, living this double life, but every time I felt like wavering, I remembered how it felt to be cast aside by my own family. That kept me going. Finally, after a month of gathering evidence, I had everything I needed: text messages, voice recordings, witness statements, a complete picture of Melissa's deception. As I sat with Jake and Alex, reviewing all the evidence, a wave of mixed emotions hit me: relief, anger, sadness, and fear. "This is it," I said, my voice shaking. "Once I do this, there's no going back. My family might never forgive me." Jake squeezed my hand, his eyes full of understanding. "They might not. But you'll have your life back, your self-respect, and us. We're not going anywhere," Jake said firmly. Alex nodded. "We've got your back, Sarah. All the way." Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself for what was to come. It was time to unravel Melissa's web of lies once and for all. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure. I was done being a doormat. It was time to stand up and fight for myself. I gathered everyone at my parents' house, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. "I know you all think I'm jealous or selfish," I began, my voice steady. "But there's something you need to see." I laid everything out: the recordings, the documents, the testimonies. Melissa's face went pale as I played a recording of her admitting the pregnancy was fake. That's not me," she stammered. She's manipulating the audio. Mark jumped to her defense. Sarah, this is low, even for you. But as the evidence mounted, doubt crept into his eyes. Then I pulled out the clincher. Medical records proving Melissa had her tubes tied years ago. It's all lies. Melissa shrieked, but her act was crumbling fast. Mom's voice trembled. Melissa, is this true? Have you been lying to us all this time? Melissa's eyes darted around the room, panic setting in. Realizing she was cornered, she made a break for the door. But Jake was faster, blocking her exit. Not so fast, he said, his tone firm. There's more. I revealed the final bombshell. Melissa was already married and wanted for fraud in Texas. The room erupted into chaos. You're under arrest, a voice boomed as two officers stepped into the room. Alex had tipped them off. As they cuffed Melissa, the gravity of the situation hit everyone. Mom broke down crying. Dad looked utterly shocked. And Mark, he just stared at Melissa, betrayal written all over his face. In the aftermath, rebuilding wasn't easy. Trust had been shattered, and wounds ran deep. I set clear boundaries with my family, making it clear that their past behavior wasn't acceptable. I love you, I told him firmly, but I won't be disrespected or manipulated again. Months passed, and I threw myself into my career, excelling like never before. Jake was my rock through it all, and our relationship only grew stronger. 1 year later, I stood in front of a mirror, admiring my engagement ring. Jake and I were planning our wedding, surrounded by true friends who had stood by us. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Melissa had been convicted and was facing years in prison for her frauds. I felt a mix of emotions, relief, vindication, and a twinge of sadness for what could have been. My relationship with my family had become cordial but distant. They were still grappling with their mistakes, and I was giving them space to do so. As I sipped my morning coffee, looking out at the Chicago skyline, I reflected on how far I had come. The old Sarah would have kept quiet, sacrificing her happiness for family peace. But I'd learned that real family, whether by blood or by choice, lifts you up, not tears you down. I was stronger now, wiser, surrounded by people who truly cared about me. The journey had been painful, but I wouldn't change it. It had led me to this moment where I finally felt free to be myself. A text from Jake popped up. Ready for our lunch date, future Mrs. Thompson. I smiled, grabbing my coat. The future was bright, and this time, I was in control of my own story. No more letting others dictate my life or my worth. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed Melissa's lies earlier, even if it meant potentially destroying your family relationships? Or would you have stayed quiet to keep the peace? Hey there, I'm Evelyn, a 22-year-old psychology major, about to graduate from college. I'm sitting in my dorm room, surrounded by piles of textbooks and half-empty coffee cups when my phone buzzes. It's my mom. Evelyn, honey, just wanted to check in about your graduation plans. Your father and I are so excited. I smile, warmth filling me. Thanks, Mom. I can't believe it's almost here. Is Tyler coming too? Of course, your brother wouldn't miss it for the world. He's even made a glitter sign. I laugh, picturing my 16-year-old brother covered in glitter. Just then, my roommate Zoe bursts into the room, her arms overflowing with party supplies. Evelyn, I got everything for the grad party. It's going to be epic. I say goodbye to my mom and turn to Zoe. You're the best, Z. I don't know what I'd do without you. Probably die of boredom, she grins. Oh, by the way, any news on that internship at the counseling center? I shake my head. Not yet, but fingers crossed. It would be the perfect start to my career. As if on cue, my phone buzzes again. This time, it's my Aunt Meredith. I groan inwardly. Evelyn, darling, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. I force a smile, even though she can't see it. Hi, Aunt Meredith. What's up? Well, I have a teensy favor to ask. You see, I've booked this fabulous spa weekend with the girls, but it's the same weekend as your, what was it again? Graduation. I grit my teeth. Yes, Aunt Meredith, my college graduation. Right. Well, I was hoping you could watch Emma and Liam for me. They adore you, you know. My jaw drops. Is she really asking me to miss my own graduation to babysit? Aunt Meredith, I can't. It's my graduation. My whole family is coming. Oh, don't be so selfish, Avalon. Family helps family, and really, it's just a silly ceremony. You can always watch the video later. I'm about to respond when I hear chaos in the background. Emma, Liam, stop fighting this instant. Aunt Meredith sighs dramatically. See what I'm dealing with. I really need this break, Evelyn. Don't let me down. Before I can say another word, she hangs up. I stare at my phone, dumbfounded. As I try to focus back on my graduation plans, I can't help but wonder. How far is Aunt Meredith willing to go to get her way? And how much am I willing to sacrifice to keep the peace? Little did I know, this was just the start of a family drama that would soon turn my world upside down. The next morning, I'll wake up to a barrage of missed calls and texts from Aunt Meredith. Each message is more dramatic than the last. Evelyn, you're breaking your cousins' hearts. I've done so much for this family, and this is how you repay me? Your grandmother would be so disappointed in you. Zoe walks in, noticing the look on my face. Your aunt again. I nod, showing her the texts. Her eyes widen. Okay, this is getting out of hand. You need to talk to your parents. With a heavy sigh, I dial my mom's number. When I explain the situation, there's a long pause on the other end. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Your Aunt Meredith has always been difficult. That's an understatement, I mutter, thinking back to my 16th birthday when Aunt Meredith borrowed the money my parents had saved for my first car to take Emma to a beauty pageant, or the time she convinced my dad to skip his 25th high school reunion to help Uncle Dave hang a TV. My mom's voice pulls me back to the present. Evelyn, listen to me. This is your graduation. You've worked so hard for this. Don't let anyone, not even family, take that away from you. Her words fill me with a renewed sense of strength. Thanks, Mom. I needed to hear that. Later that day, I meet up with my boyfriend, Ethan, for coffee. As soon as Ethan sees my face, his expression shifts. Evelyn, what's going on? You look stressed. I fill him in on the Aunt Meredith situation, and his face darkens with every detail. Babe, this isn't okay. She's manipulating you. You can't give in to this. I nod, but the guilt gnaws at me. I know, but she's family. What if she's right? What if I am being selfish? Standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. Before I can respond, my phone rings. It's my cousin Jessica from my dad's side. Evelyn, I just wanted to check on you. I heard you were having some issues. I frown, confused. Issues? What do you mean? Jessica hesitates. Well, Aunt Meredith called. She said you were struggling with addiction and might not make it to graduation. She asked us to pray for you. My jaw drops. What? That's completely untrue. After I hang up, I'm shaking with anger. Ethan looks at me, concerned. Evelyn, you need to put a stop to this. She's spreading lies about you now. I nod, my emotions a whirlwind of hurt and rage. You're right, this ends now. That evening, I'm at my parents' house for dinner. The tension is thick. Even my usually carefree brother, Tyler, is unusually quiet. Finally, Dad breaks the silence. Evelyn, your mother told me about Meredith. I want you to know, we support you 100%. I smile, grateful. Thanks, Dad. I just don't know how to make her stop without causing a huge family rift. Mom sighs softly. Sometimes, honey, you can't avoid conflict when dealing with toxic people, even if they're family. As we clear the dinner dishes, I overhear Dad on the phone in the other room. His voice is low but tense. Dave, you need to control your wife. She's causing serious problems for Evelyn. What do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? Curious, I edge closer to the door. I'm serious, Dave. This needs to stop. Hello? Dave? Dad comes out of the room, looking frustrated. He hung up on me. Just then, my phone buzzes again. It's a text from my cousin Emma. Mom and Dad are fighting about money again. Can I come stay with you? Before I can respond, I hear Aunt Meredith's voice through my phone's speaker. It's a recording. I got a call from my uncle, and it was obviously a mistake, Dave. We need that money. I don't care if you have to take it from the business account. My spa weekend is non-refundable. Meredith, we can't keep doing this. I hear Uncle Dave's strained voice reply. The business is already struggling. I quickly end the call, my mind racing. What kind of financial trouble are they in? And why does Aunt Meredith seem so unconcerned? As I stand there, trying to process everything, one thing becomes crystal clear. This isn't just about a spa weekend or babysitting. There's something bigger going on, and somehow I'm caught right in the middle of it all. The next day, I pull up to Aunt Meredith's house, my stomach in knots. She's waiting on the porch, all smiles. Evelyn, darling, I'm so glad you came. Come in, come in. I step inside, and the tension hits me immediately. Uncle Dave is nowhere to be seen. Where's Uncle Dave? I ask. Oh, working late again, Aunt Meredith says dismissively. Now, let's talk about your future. I frown. My future? Yes, dear. I've been thinking. Instead of that silly counseling job, why don't you come work for your uncle's company? We could really use your help. I'm stunned. Aunt Meredith, I've been working towards my counseling career for years. I can't just abandon that. Her smile fades and her face hardens. Evelyn, family helps family. We need you. Just then, my phone buzzes. It's a text from Zoe. You won't believe this. I was doing some digging and found out your aunt has been calling the places you applied to, giving them bad references. My blood runs cold. What? I type back. Are you sure? Positive. I have recordings. I hang up, my mind spinning. I look over at Aunt Meredith, who's watching me carefully, her eyes narrowed. Everything okay, dear? Before I can respond, Emma and Liam burst into the room, running up to hug me. Evelyn. Hey kiddos, how are you? Emma glances nervously at her mom before whispering, Can we talk to you alone? I lead them to their room, and as soon as the door closes, the floodgates open. Mom's never home, Liam blurts out, and when she is, she's always yelling at Dad about money. Emma nods. Dad sleeps in his office most nights. We heard him say the business is in trouble because of Mom's spending. My heart breaks for them. I hug them both tightly. I'm so sorry, guys. I had no idea. As I leave the house, my heart pounds in my chest. I can't believe what's unfolding. Driving away, I grab my phone and call my parents. Mom, Dad, we need to talk. It's about Aunt Meredith, and it's worse than we thought. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. It's time to expose the truth, no matter the consequences. My graduation is happening, and no one, not even Aunt Meredith, is going to stop me from living my life on my own terms. Graduation day arrives, and I'm a bundle of nerves as I adjust my cap and gown. Skating the crowd, I feel a wave of relief. No sign of Aunt Meredith. Instead, I spot my parents and Tyler, their faces beaming with pride. As I walk across the stage to receive my diploma, I catch sight of Zoe and Ethan cheering loudly. Their support means the world to me, especially after everything we've been through. After the ceremony, as we're taking family photos, Dad pulls me aside. Evelyn, I need to tell you something. You were right about Meredith. The whole family knows now. My heart skips a beat. What happened? Dad sighs. Dave found out about the fraud. He left her and took the kids with him. The board of the family business voted to remove her completely. I'm stunned. It's a lot to process, but before I can respond, my phone rings. It's the counseling center, the one I've been dreaming of working for. Miss Thompson, we'd like to offer you a position. Your handling of your recent family situation showed remarkable ethics and resilience. I accept on the spot, my heart soaring. As I hang up, I catch my parents' questioning looks. I got the job, I announce, and we all burst into celebratory hugs. 6 months fly by in a whirlwind of new experiences. I'm thriving in my new role at the counseling center, and even better, I'm helping Emma and Liam adjust to their new life with Uncle Dave. It's not always easy, but seeing them smile more often makes it all worthwhile. Then one day, as I'm leaving work, I see her, Aunt Meredith. She's standing outside a discount store, looking worn and defeated. For a moment, our eyes meet. I see regret there, maybe even an unspoken apology. But it's too little too late. I hesitate for a second, a small part of me wanting to reach out, but then I remember all the pain she caused, the manipulation, the deceit. I turn and walk away, focused on the bright future ahead. As I drive to meet my family for dinner, I can't help but smile. Life isn't perfect, but it's mine. I've learned the hard way that sometimes the most toxic relationships come from family. But I've also learned that I have the strength to stand up for myself, to chase my dreams, and to build a life free from manipulation and drama. Pulling up to the restaurant, I see my parents, Tyler, Zoe, and Ethan waiting for me. This is my real family, the people who support me, challenge me, and love me unconditionally. As I join them, laughing and sharing stories, I know that I wouldn't have it any other way. That's the end of Evelyn's story. Now, I've got a question for you. Should Evelyn have given Aunt Meredith one last chance to make amends, or was cutting her out completely the right call? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hey everyone, I'm Harper. Just your typical 18-year-old high school senior from suburban Chicago. Or Maybe not so typical. Did you finish your calculus homework? Mom called from the kitchen. Almost, I shouted back, furiously scribbling equations. Don't forget you've got your volunteering shift at the hospital tomorrow, Dad chimed in. I sighed. I know, it's all under control. That's basically my life. Study, volunteer, repeat. But honestly, I love it. Now, let me tell you about my sister, Vanessa. She's 22, in her final year of pre-med, and the golden child of the family. Perfect grades, perfect hair, perfect everything. Or at least that's what everyone else seems to think. Hey Squirt, still playing doctor with your little volunteer gig? Vanessa smirked, breezing into my room. It's called gaining experience, Vanessa. You should try it sometime, I shot back. She rolled her eyes. Please, I'm already top of my class. I don't need to play nursemaid to pad my resume. That's Vanessa for you, always comparing, always competing. I try not to let it get to me. I've got my own path to follow. Later at dinner, it was the usual Vanessa show. So Vanessa, tell us about your latest research project. Dad beamed as she launched into an impressive explanation of her groundbreaking work. Mom turned to me. Harper, why don't you do something like that? It would look great on your college applications. I forced a smile. I'm focusing on my hospital work right now, Mom. It's giving me real-world experience. That's nice, dear, she replied, already turning back to Vanessa's story. After dinner, I retreated to my room to work on my college applications. Johns Hopkins is my dream, and I'm determined to make it happen. Hey Harper, what you working on? My best friend Mike texted. Just polishing my personal statement for Hopkins. Want to read it? Sure, send it over. As I hit send, I heard Vanessa's voice from downstairs. Mom, Dad, guess what? I just got an internship offer from the Mayo Clinic. The house erupted in cheers. I sighed and turned back to my computer. Suddenly, my heart stopped. My applications, my personal statements, everything was gone. I stared at the screen, panic rising in my chest. No, I muttered, searching through every folder. How could this be happening? Grabbing my phone, I dialed Mike. Dude, I need your help. It's an emergency. Whoa, slow down, Harper. What's going on? My applications, they're gone. All of them. Can you come over? While waiting for Mike, Vanessa sauntered back into my room. Still working on those applications, little sis. You know, there's no shame in applying to community college. Not everyone can handle the pressure of med school. I gritted my teeth. Thanks for the advice, Vanessa. But I got this. She shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. Just looking out for you. Wouldn't want you to be disappointed when the rejection letters start rolling in. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Thank God, Mike was here. As Mike worked his tech magic, Vanessa's words kept replaying in my head. Something felt off. Hey Harper, I think I found something, Mike said, his voice tense. These files weren't just deleted. They were accessed remotely and then wiped. My blood ran cold. What are you saying? Someone hacked your computer, Harper, Mike replied, and I think I know who. I followed his gaze to the screen. There, clear as day, was an IP address, Vanessa's laptop. No, she wouldn't, I whispered. But deep down, I already knew. I stormed downstairs, finding Vanessa in the living room with our parents. How could you? I shouted. You deleted my applications. Vanessa's face paled. Vanessa quickly composed herself. What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? Don't lie, Vanessa. We traced it back to your laptop. You hacked my computer and deleted everything. I was shaking now, tears streaming down my face. Our parents looked bewildered. Dad stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. Girls, what's going on? Vanessa's composed facade cracked. You don't deserve it, she yelled. You think you can just waltz into med school and be better than me? I've worked my entire life for this. I stood there stunned. So he tried to ruin my future. My voice trembled. Because you're trying to steal my spotlight. Vanessa screamed, her voice breaking. It's always, Harper's so kind. Harper's so smart. What about me? I'm the one who's supposed to be the doctor in this family. Mom gasped. Vanessa, how could you say such things? But Vanessa was on a roll now, years of pent-up jealousy pouring out. You have no idea what it's like, always feeling like I have to be perfect. always knowing Harper's right behind me, ready to take my place. Take your place. I was incredulous. I've never tried to compete with you, Vanessa. I just wanted to follow my own dreams. Dad stepped in, trying to mediate. Girls, please, we can work this out. Maybe we should consider family therapy. No, I cut him off, my voice steely. There's no therapy for this. Vanessa tried to destroy my future. I'm done. Harper, please, Mom pleaded. We're family. We can fix this. I paused at the doorway, my back to my family. Watch me. The days after the confrontation were a blur. I felt like I was drowning, watching my dreams slip away with each passing deadline. But I refused to let Vanessa win. Okay, team, I said, looking around at my friends gathered in my room. We've got a lot of work to do and not much time. We divided the tasks. Sarah would help me rewrite my personal statements, Alex would contact my teachers for new recommendation letters, and Mike would handle the technical side, making sure everything was submitted correctly. As we worked, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. I hesitated before answering. Harper, please come home, she said softly. We need to talk about this as a family. I took a deep breath. I can't, Mom. I need to focus on rebuilding what Vanessa destroyed. There was a long pause. We didn't know. We never saw. We're so sorry, Harper. A lump formed in my throat, but I pushed it down. I know, Mom, but I need to do this on my own now. As I hung up, Sarah squeezed my shoulder. You've got this, Harper. We believe in you. Days turned into weeks. We worked tirelessly, fueled by determination and countless cups of coffee. One afternoon, as we worked, Mike looked up from his laptop. Hey, what about this EMT certification program? He suggested, pointing at the screen. It's a year-long course. Could be a great experience before med school. I leaned in, intrigued. That actually looks amazing. I could get hands-on experience, really see if this is what I want. As I began to broaden my horizons, news from home trickled in. Vanessa's university had launched an investigation into her academic conduct. Apparently, her unethical behavior wasn't limited to sabotaging my applications. She's been put on academic probation, Dad told me during one of our weekly calls. His voice was heavy with regret. We had no idea things had gotten so bad. We failed both of you. I sighed, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. We all have a lot to learn, Dad. But right now, I need to focus on my future. Months passed. I submitted applications to a range of schools and enrolled in the EMT program. The work was challenging, often grueling, but it ignited a fire in me that I never knew existed. Then, on a crisp spring morning, it happened. I was at the EMT station when my phone buzzed with an email notification. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Harper Johnson, we are pleased to offer you admission to Stanford University School of Medicine with a full scholarship. I stared at the screen, tears filling my eyes as the weight of everything lifted from my shoulders. Despite everything, I had made it. I couldn't believe my eyes. Stanford with a full scholarship. I read the email 3 times before it finally sank in. Mike, I yelled, dialing his number. You're not going to believe this. As I shared the news with my friends and family, a weight seemed to lift off my shoulders. I had done it. Despite everything, despite Vanessa's betrayal, I had risen from the ashes and forged my own path. I couldn't help but wonder if Vanessa had heard about my acceptance. Part of me hoped she had, not out of spite, but as proof that her actions hadn't defined me. I had defined myself. Later that night, as I looked out at the stars, a sense of peace washed over me. This was just the beginning of my journey, and for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see where it would lead. The lecture hall buzzed with excitement as I gathered my notes. 2 years into Stanford Med, and here I was about to present my research to some of the brightest minds in emergency medicine. Taking a deep breath, I stepped up to the podium. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be discussing our findings on innovative triage techniques in mass casualty events. As I spoke, I caught sight of my parents in the audience, their faces beaming with pride. Our relationship had come a long way since the fallout with Vanessa. They had learned to celebrate my achievements without comparing me to her, to support me without suffocating. As the day wound down, I found myself surrounded by friends, colleagues, and family. Mike pulled me into a tight hug. You were amazing, he whispered. I looked around at the smiling faces, feeling that familiar sense of peace wash over me. This was where I belonged. This was the future I had fought for. A surge of excitement ran through me for what lay ahead. The road hadn't been easy, but it had led me exactly where I was meant to be. And that's the end of my story, everyone. Now I've got a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you ever forgive Vanessa for what she did? Or are some betrayals just too deep to move past? Share your thoughts in the comments below.